Welcome back, guys. Episode 9 of the Sports King.Pod. I'm your host, Dom, joined by Price Brothers up top, Dan and Anthony, as always. And we're going to start right with it because I need to get my pain just gone. Penn State lost to Maryland over the weekend. You guys go.
Like I said,
Anthony, be quiet. You guys go.
Just Sean Clifford, man. We talked about it before. I don't know what. I don't get him. I don't get why he's playing. Play literally anybody else. He's not the answer for Penn State at quarterback. I can't. All those statistics that you pulled up last week about, or not last week, last podcast about the outscoring, the record, and
don't mean jack.
Sean Clifford goes and does that. Anthony, you can go. I know you're going to be a bit more.
First, I want to congratulate Maryland. I said you would win last podcast, and no, it wasn't my prediction, but I was right. Little Tagovailoa, great job. You know, his first start at Maryland, he didn't do that good. The past 2 games did very good. He had 3 touchdowns in that game against Penn State, and just Penn State's not that good. You know, Clifford's not the answer. There's a lot of talking they got to do, coaching, recruiting, because they're not the Penn State that everyone knows and so many people love. I'm a Penn State fan. You know, your season's over. It was kind of over after that first loss against Indiana, but now it just, you know, that was the nail in the coffin. There's no coming back from this. You're not going to make a Big Ten championship. That national championship playoffs should not going to even be thought of. Just good job, Maryland. Congratulations. It was a big weekend for the Tagovailoa family. Back to you, Dom.
Yeah. People are going to say, oh, Sean Clifford didn't do terrible. 27 for 57. Atrocious. 340 yards. Sounds good, but it's not when you throw the ball 57 times. 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, not to mention a QBR of 29.5.
Bring up his rushing stats, too, because they were...
his rushing stats? 17 carries for 26 yards. He had more carries than Devin Ford and Ceziah Holmes, or he had 1 less carry than those 2 combined, who are our starting running backs now that Journey Brown and Noah Cain are both out. I mean, Jahad Dotson, he had another tremendous game. 9 catches, 123 yards, and a touchdown. It's the only good thing to come from this game. Pat Freiermuth, he also had a decent game, but nowhere near the performances that we should be having. It's very clear that the defense is missing Micah Parsons a lot. His presence, they just look so slow. They don't want to, you know, no one wants to tackle. It's rough to watch, especially for me. And you know, I'm gonna start this episode by handing out my performer of the weekend. And it's not necessarily a performer of the weekend, it's a bum of the weekend. And it's gonna go to James Franklin. James Franklin, it's clear to me now that 2016 Big Ten title was not you. You played no part in that. It was Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley. Your offense is atrocious. It consists of about 3 plays. 2 of them don't work, and the third one being a read option that gets the occasional 3 or 5 yards of play. Sure, that's a tremendous play. Pat yourself on the back for that. You need to go. You need to go. I was watching the game, and I said, if we lose this game, Franklin's got to go. There's no more excuses left. He's just got to go. And it's annoying because after every single game, you'll sit there at his press conference and he'll be like, "We just got to do better. We just got to be a better football team. It's just got to be better." And that's the answer he'll have to every single question after every single game, after every single loss. It's boring at this point. You're not improving the team. You're not making the offense any better. You know, our defense isn't looking that sharp. And, you know, everyone's out there like, oh, we can't get rid of him. He's so good at recruiting. The next year's class is not even top 25. How can you be one of the best recruiting coaches out there and not even have a top 25 recruiting class? It just doesn't make sense to me. And the fact that he's stuck with Clifford the entire game, that bothered me too. It's like it's clear that we weren't doing anything. The final score was 35-19. That's generous. We were down like 35-7. You know, the extra points we had after having 7 points means nothing to me. We lost that game by halftime. The game was over at halftime. Realistically, they were up 28-0 at halftime. We didn't, or it was 28-7 at halftime. I'm sorry, but it was out of reach after the first quarter. Realistically, we looked so slow on offense. We didn't look any better on defense. It wasn't a fun game to watch. It was saddening, honestly. It's been a while since I've seen Penn State look like this. Since they put themselves back on the map with that, good 2016 season they had, where they won the Big Ten title game, and then seasons after that where they continue to improve and press. And then there's this season. They lost the game to Indiana, which granted doesn't look that bad right now considering how Indiana's been playing. And then they got blown out of the water against Ohio State. And then this happens against Maryland. Like I said last episode, hadn't won a game against us since 2014. They scored more points in the first quarter than they did in the last 3 games against us. And, I thought to myself, I was like, how do you do better against Ohio State than you do against Maryland? It just doesn't make sense to me. And there's a lot of questions that are going to be asked from this. And there's questions that are being asked. There's more questions that are going to come from this. And it all depends on how the rest of the season goes. They play Nebraska this weekend where both teams don't have a win. So someone's got to get a win. And you know what? I think it's going to be Nebraska, honestly. I don't know how this team is going to win a game realistically. I looked at the schedule last time and I was like, well, we should win out. Maryland's an easy game. They'll probably beat Michigan. Michigan hasn't looked that sharp. I genuinely don't know if we'll get a bowl game this year. I genuinely don't. And it's a terrible thing that I have to question that. Because looking at this team, this was a top 10 team in the nation. And guess what James Franklin did? Turned into the worst team in the Big Ten right now. How do you do that? How do you turn a team that 4 years ago was, one ranking away from being in the college football playoff to the worst team in the Big Ten now? I look at other teams around the country. It's like, okay, well, there's no way BYU should make the college football playoff. There's no way Cincinnati should make the college football playoff. They would steamroll Penn State in a game at this point right now. And I'm going to be beating a dead horse at this point, but it's embarrassing. And it's not the way that Penn State football should be played. It's not the way that Penn State football should be played. And I imagine, there's a lot of other Penn State fans out there, students, alumni, that are just as upset as I am. And I'm not going to say it's not fair because it's a game of football. I'll get over it. But I feel like there should be more coming from this team, I should say. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to take anything away from Maryland. I'm not going to take anything away from Maryland. They played a great game. As Anthony said, Tulia, I might be saying that wrong, Tua's brother, he had a great game. He torched us up. Their running game was very good. Jake Funk, 16 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown. And then Rakeem Jarrell had 2 touchdowns on slant routes. He had 5 catches for 144 yards, and both those slant routes went for like 50-plus yards. Like I said, we just couldn't tackle. So Maryland played a good game, but we should have played a better game, in all honesty. Penn State should have. Yeah, I think we should probably just move on from this before it gets any worse for me.
It looks like it felt good, though. Felt good to say it.
Oh, it did. I've been saying it all week, It's just – it's disappointing to me. We'll talk about it later, but if it happened to USC, I imagine Dan would be disappointed as well, considering we talked about it on the last podcast. There's always a season disappointment for them, but if it came in the first week of the season for them, then it would have been a different story. But I never saw this coming in a million years. If you would have told me Penn State was going to start 0-3, I wouldn't have believed you. There's no way. But that's the reality we live in now. As Anthony said, we're not going to be playing in a Big Ten title game. We're not going to be playing in a college football playoff. Like I said earlier, I don't even know if we're going to get a bowl game this year. But yeah, we're just going to move on before this gets any worse for me, before I have a vein popping out of my forehead. So let's look at the rest of the college football on the weekend in it. And of course, the weekend was highlighted by the Clemson-Notre Dame game, which took place on Saturday night. Great game between the two, back and forth game. Notre Dame ends up pulling out the victory in double overtime. Ian Book had a pretty good game, and so did DJ. I'm going to probably say it wrong, even though I learned how to say it. Uungalele. I don't know if it was right or not, but I'm going to say it was right. He had a very good game as well. So why don't you guys go? Let's dive right into this game.
I definitely think that if Clemson has Trevor Lawrence, the outcome of this game would be a lot different. I don't see a double overtime win for Notre Dame. I see a regulation win for Clemson. I don't know if it'd be easily, but I really hope that we see these two play again in the ACC championship. But yeah, I got to give credit where credit's due. Notre Dame played a good game. We were saying on the last podcast that if Clemson was going to win this game, they needed Etienne to have a really good game like he did against Boston College, and he did not. He averaged 1.6 yards per carry. I think it was 18 rushes for 28 yards, I
Correct.
believe, something along those lines. So the Notre Dame defense just did a great job of stopping the run. I mean, they let up 40 points, but college football, 40 points isn't the worst, but stopping the run really helped them out, and they are now number 2 in the rankings behind Alabama. So very, very good win for Notre Dame.
Yep, great win for Notre Dame. I wouldn't even say like last podcast we talked about for Notre Dame to win this game, or for Clemson to win this game, they have to have great defense, and NTN has to go off. As Dan said, NTN did not do good. Notre Dame did great on defense, controlling him and minimizing his impact. And then just Ian Book, I know like he had one touchdown, 310 yards. That's like an okay game. I wouldn't even count him as the reason why Notre Dame won. I would say the defense and Kyren Williams, the running back, get 3 touchdowns for 140 yards. Like that just the defense couldn't stop them. And they need defense in this game because they know that without Lawrence, they're not going to be able to put 50 points on the board. They did put 40, but that's 2 overtimes also. But just the defense for Clemson did not do good. They couldn't stop them. Williams just had a career day. So did McKinley, 5 receptions, 102 yards. Just this was a huge win for Notre Dame. Notre Dame basically right there just locked their chance of making the playoffs. That ACC championship game, which it looks like it's going to be Clemson and Notre Dame, is going to be the biggest decider of whether if Clemson loses or not making the playoffs no matter what. I don't care that Trevor Lawrence, wasn't playing for 2 games and they lost one without him. Like it's a shame we can't control COVID-19 and other teams are getting it. Like Wisconsin hasn't played in a couple of weeks, but just it was a great game by Notre Dame, and the way they rushed the field after the game, honestly, they deserve to because that's just you have to tip your hats to all those players.
Yeah, Anthony named all the good players that had a good game. Kyren Williams, 23 rushes, 140 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Javon McKinley had 5 catches for 102 yards, and Avery Davis had 4 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. It's not like Clemson played a bad game either. As Dan said, Etienne was just absolutely stuffed at the line pretty much the entire game with only 28 yards. He did have a touchdown, but that's nothing to gloat over when you only get 28 yards on 18 carries. The entirety of Clemson's offense only had 34 rushing yards, which is just not enough. And Cornell Powell, he had 6 catches for 161 yards and a touchdown, and Amari Rodgers had 8 catches for 134 yards. So it was a good game, but that defense we've been praising for Clemson all season just did not show up. It was rough watching them play defense, honestly. Letting them get 47 points, and then Boston College the week prior put up a good number of points on them too. So I think Dan makes a good point with Trevor Lawrence. I think this game's a different story.
100%.
I would say Clemson still win. I said on the last podcast, I said pretty confidently, I think Clemson was going to win the game big. That was not the case. They didn't even win the game. But I think it's a different story with Trevor Lawrence. I think Anthony makes the point where at the ACC title game, it's going to be a completely different story. A, on a neutral site field, and then B, with Clemson having Trevor Lawrence. I think, we'll talk about that game as it gets closer, and it's not even locked for sure right now that it's going to be that game, but it looks like it's going to be that game. And I think Anthony says that it looks like Notre Dame's kind of locked their place in the college football playoff. I'm going to have to disagree with that. It's all going to come down to the ACC title game. Regardless, I think if somehow, some way along the line, Alabama slips up and Notre Dame ends up getting the number 1 spot in the rankings, I think the winner of that game is probably going to go in, unless Notre Dame loses the game on like a last-second field goal, say. And at the time, it's Notre Dame's 1 and Clemson is 3 or something like that, and Notre Dame loses the game in a last-second field goal, then they're probably still going to get in. But if they lose that game, then it's going to be hard to say, all right, well, listen, we're going to have to get the winner of that game. We're going to have to get the winner of the Big Ten title game, which is, looking at it now, it's probably going to be Ohio State. and then the winner of the SEC title game, which could either be Alabama or potentially Florida. And then you never know if BYU continues to roll, if Cincinnati continues to roll, or if something else, something happens along the way. Texas A&M could probably get in there. So we're gonna have to see as the rest of the way goes and the rest of the season develops, and more teams continue to play more games and championship games look more clear. So it's hard to make predictions now, but there's like some locks where you can say, okay, that team is definitely going to be in there. Whoever wins that is going to be in there. And like I said, as the season goes on, we'll continue to talk about that and make predictions on who's going to be in there. But getting back to this game, the Clemson Notre Dame game, it was a fun game to watch. It was exactly what we expected out of it. 1 versus 4, we expected a good game, and that's what we got. And that's all we were really hoping for. Honestly, I didn't really care who won the game personally, but it was just fun to watching majority of this game. It was back and forth most of the time. Clemson was down by a decent margin at one point, and they came back, made it a game, and it was interesting from there on out. Again, the game went to overtime, so that made it even more interesting to watch. And that was just the cream of the crop of the fun games that we had on Saturday. The other one being Georgia versus Florida, a big SEC battle, and a game where we talked about in the last podcast. That's Bennett. What's he got to do to make sure Georgia gets better? And whatever he did was not enough because he went 5 for 16, 78 yards, a touchdown, an interception. He ends up getting benched, and it wasn't even for Dan's boy, JT Daniels. Somebody back me up. DeJuan Mathis comes in. He substitutes in for Stetson Bennett, plays quarterback. He didn't do that well either. Georgia ended up losing the game 28-44. Kyle Trask puts on an amazing show, 30 for 43, 474 yards and 4 touchdowns. I believe he did have an interception as well. But very good game from Florida. Georgia came out of the gates firing in this one. They were up 14-0, I believe. And then they went up 21-7. And then Georgia, does what every team in Georgia does the best, apparently. They blew a lead. And Florida came back. They took the lead. So I'm going to hand this off to you guys and give me what you got on it.
Yeah, so Trask, I want to preface this. I forget his name, but the receiver on Georgia who scored the second touchdown, he sustained a really bad injury. I was watching it. He was diving to get the touchdown, but I think he might have broke his ankle or something. So I hope for a speedy recovery for him. He's a true freshman or redshirt freshman. So hopefully, he gets better because it looked pretty bad. But moving on, Kyle Trask, he played a very good game. Florida, came back and they won the game. And I don't really know what Georgia is doing. I mean, I guess perhaps a little bit biased because I'm a fan of him, but just put in JT Daniels. I mean, he was a very highly recruited quarterback coming into when he went to USC, and then obviously he's not there anymore. But I think he has, at least a talent to be better than those other guys. He may be a bit more like rash or like erratic, but I think you just at this point in the season, you're 4-2. I don't think you're gonna win the SEC. You're not making it to the playoff. I would just put Daniels in and just see how he can play for the rest of the season.
It was a great game. Like Georgia started off hot. Like the first play of the game was a 75-yard touchdown by Zeus Zamir White. And then they got another touchdown. It was 14-0. Then Trask came back 14-7, then 14-14, and then just right after that, Trask had a great game. He's entering himself in the Heisman conversation now. He broke his own personal record for most throwing yards in the game. He beat that record and at the end of the third quarter, and it was 405 yards, and he was already past that at the end of the third. That's just crazy. Pittis and Davis had just a great game, and the Florida cornerbacks did too. Florida always has those cornerbacks that are great, high in the draft, and Florida's rolling. It was a home game, and it was an important win for them. This win is one knocking Georgia out of because the SEC split into two divisions, East and West. So Alabama's in, I think it's the West, and then the East is Florida and Georgia. So Florida's now first in that, and there's no way Georgia can come back. Georgia I said this last week. I don't think Bennett should have started. They should have put Mathis, or I like JT Daniels a lot. I don't know why they would make him do all this work to transfer and then not play him. And for now, I just think Bennett can't start anymore. Just put in Mathis to start, and then if they're up by a lot, put Daniels in. Did you see how he does? And then just Georgia's season's over right now. You're going to get a bowl game. You still want to win, still want to compete. You're only ranked 12 now, you know. So it was just a great game by Florida. Georgia just is a mess. They don't know what they're doing. And just, I picked this game as an upset. That was my prediction of the week. Florida would beat Georgia. Now I'm 2-1 in that. And it was just Florida. If Florida makes the SEC championship and beats Alabama, who looks like it's going to come from the West, that could be the factor of them making the playoffs this year. And Florida just has to keep winning out. That's the most important thing for them now.
Yeah, Florida's just got to run the table, and they'll easily win the SEC East and make it to the SEC title game. Georgia would need a lot for them to happen. They would need Florida to drop not only one game, but Florida would still have the tiebreaker over them after winning the game. So they would need them to drop at least 2 games, and then Georgia would have to run the table. So it's a lot for Georgia to potentially make the SEC title game. And even then, I don't even know if it'd be enough for them to get into the college football playoff. But never say never in college football. Anything can happen. But regardless, Florida played one hell of a game. Everyone was firing on all cylinders pretty much. As we said, Kyle Trask had an amazing game. The run game was pretty good too with Damon Pierce, 52 yards, a touchdown on 15 carries. And Malik Davis receiving wise, 5 catches for 100 yards. Naquan, I think I'm saying that right. Naquan Wright, 3 catches, 71 yards. And Kyle Pitts also had 2 catches, 59 yards and a touchdown. And I think really the story of this is just that Georgia couldn't get their offense running whatsoever. Florida just had the answers for them on every single side of the ball. As we said, Stetson Bennett did not have a good game. Dwan Mathis, when he came in, he didn't really do all that well. The only really good player on Georgia who had a good game was Zamir White, 7 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown. Even then, he got 75 yards on one run, which really boosted his stats a lot. So that takes a lot away, I would say. But it was just a bad game in general from Georgia. And yeah, Florida's got their work cut out for them. They just got to run the table. And they'll, have a date with Alabama in the SEC title game as of right now. Again, but nothing is set in stone. So we'll have to wait and see. But I like their chances, honestly. The way they played today, if they continue to play that way, if they can, I think they'll run the table. The rest of the schedule is very favorable for them. And if they beat Alabama in the SEC title game, they'll definitely be in the college football playoff, no doubt about it. And they look pretty good right now. I don't know if I can compare them to Alabama, how they'll match up against them, or even against 100% healthy Clemson team, how they'll match up against them, and even Notre Dame at this point. So or even Ohio State for that point too. We'll have to see how Florida continues to play and how they continue to do, and we'll just, like we said, keep following this along until the end of the season and see where things go. We had another really good ranked matchup happen on Friday night. BYU, they played Boise State, and BYU absolutely steamrolled Boise State. They beat them 51-17. Game was never really close. It was always out of reach for Boise State. Zach Wilson, one of the top Heisman candidates right now, he goes 21 for 27, 359 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And rushing-wise, Tyler Algier, 14 carries, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him. Guys, what do we got in this game?
BYU continues to make it happen. Like you said, Wilson had a really good game, and they did it on the blue turf. Boise State is a good win for them. I don't know how many games are left in their schedule, but they'll probably go undefeated, I'm thinking, as of right now. I don't know if they'll make the playoff because we've seen UCF go undefeated, but it's not from a Power 5 conference. But if you're a BYU player, a fan, just gotta win. Like, you're gonna play who you're scheduled against and win, so you can't take that away from them. But definitely a good win for BYU.
Yes, Zach Wilson, like Dom said, now he's 4th in the Heisman run-in. He did great. They didn't have their 2 starting tackles, their wide receiver. They had a couple people on defensive end out too, and against Boise State, and they still destroyed them. Zach Wilson is making himself known. His stock's rising and for the NFL draft. It was just BYU is now coming more of a football school. Last year they won a bowl game. This year now they're undefeated. They're ranked high. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, they're just not a Power 5 school. I think they can compete. It'll be a good game, like a close game with the top schools, but they won't. I don't think they'll make a playoff. They'll get a nice bowl game though, which is good for like BYU. It's not a big school, but now it's getting bigger and more people are becoming fans of it. They're like the underdogs. They have that theme, which is just, you always root for the underdogs. Nice to see. But it's just a great game by Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of guys on BYU who had very good games. I'll name a few of them here. As I said, Tyler Algier had 14 rushes, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I might say this wrong, but the other running back, Lopini Katoa, he had 8 rushes, 66 yards, also had a touchdown. Few of the receivers had good games. Gunnar Romney had 6 catches for 133 yards and a touchdown. Dax Milne, 3 catches for 99 yards. Niall Pau, 5 catches for 75 yards. And Isaac Rex had 5 catches for 45 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also, Boise State, Khalil Shakir had 10 catches for 159 yards, or 139 yards, I'm sorry, and 2 touchdowns. So he had a good game. He was the only guy on BYU who had a good game. And for BYU, as we said, probably not going to make it into the college football playoff. They need a lot of things to go their way. They're probably going to need everyone else in front of them to lose at least like 2 more times, probably, for them to even be considered. But their remaining schedule, they got 2 more games left. They'll play North Alabama on November 21st, and then they'll play San Diego State on December 12th. So they got a lot of time in between those last remaining games. So I think they just got to keep their momentum going. And hey, you never know. If teams lose, teams drop games, maybe you could sneak in there. But if not, you're definitely going to get a good bowl game, New Year's 6th, most likely. And yeah, I mean, Anthony says Zach Wilson is 4th. I believe he's 3rd right now. Anthony's really high on Mac Jones, or these rankings that Anthony's taking are very high on Mac Jones. ESPN is very high on Mac Jones. I disagree. I think he's definitely 3rd behind Lawrence and Fields for the Heisman running. And I think that's all I really have to say on this game. As I said, it wasn't much of a matchup. BYU blew Boise State out of the water. So yeah, we'll move on. A few of the other ranked games that we will dive right into. Ohio State, they put up a nice performance again against Rutgers. Justin Fields, I believe he had 4 throwing touchdowns, and he also had a rushing touchdown. So 5 total touchdowns, which make a recipe for a good game for him. He improves his Heisman campaign. Miami, they got very close in a game against NC State on Friday night as well. They barely squeaked out a win in a back and forth game that I watched. It was a very enjoyable game to watch. NC State looked very close. They looked like they were going to win it. And then they kind of, took their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter and really just kind of lost control of that game. Cincinnati, they handle Houston pretty easily, 38-10. Texas A&M, they blew South Carolina out of the water, 48-3. Oklahoma State barely beat Kansas State, 28-18. Coastal Carolina, they handled South Alabama very easily, 23-6. Marshall very nearly covered on that minus 45 points, 51-10 against UMass. Iowa State barely beats Baylor, 38-31. SMU, they squeak out a win against Temple, and it looked rough for them early. They win 47-23. Oklahoma absolutely blows out Kansas. Poor Kansas falls to 0-7, 62-9. They hit the over in that game. We said they probably wouldn't, but we were fools to take the under, guys. Texas, they barely squeaked out a win against West Virginia, 17-13. And here was a really weird game. I didn't watch any of this game, I'm not going to lie. Liberty beat Virginia Tech 38-35 on a last-second field goal on a play where on the original field goal try, the kick was blocked. Virginia Tech blocked it, and they took it all the way to the house. Got a touchdown, but it was called back because Virginia Tech had called a timeout. So
yeah, it was funny.
Pain.
It was so much funny if you watched it live. So, it was 35-35, and Virginia Tech's in ready, and this is a long field goal too. And it was so loud because Virginia Tech was home and they had fans there that you couldn't hear anything. And once it snapped, blocked the field goal, got even louder. And you see all Virginia Tech running, and they scored a touchdown. All the players are coming on the field, all happy. The ball guy, like the ball boy in the end zone, was like jumping on the dude who scored. And then next thing you know, you see the ref saying prior to the snap, Huskies timeout, and the whole stadium just was sad. And then next thing you know, Liberty kicker right through the uprights. Next thing, it's so funny. At first I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. For some reason, I thought he blocked it and was running it back to the wrong end zone. Like, I don't know why I thought that. That's what I thought initially, but it was so funny. You know, Virginia Tech probably feels sick right now. And it was just a funny game, but a good win by Liberty.
Yeah, good win by Liberty. They were 25th at the time of that. I believe they moved up in the rankings. And listen, Dan, this is your time to shine. USC narrowly escaped Arizona State in a game I thought Arizona State was going to win. They were up, I believe it was 27-13 or 14 with about 3 minutes left in the game. And USC, they come back. They stormed down the field a couple times, and they ended up winning the game 28-27. Dan, take it away.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous. I was at work, so I only got to see like some of the game. But yeah, like I said on the last podcast, USC will at some point have a bad loss, but I didn't think it would happen this early. It turns out I was right, but it was pretty close. Arizona State, I gotta give them credit. They played a good game, but in the last, like, I think it was 3-4 minutes, USC scored 14 points and they were able to storm back. Caton Slovis, he had I would say, a mixed game. Threw the ball 55 times. Isn't very good. He completed 40 of those passes, so it wasn't like Clifford where he was like 27 for 57. 381, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So a mixed game. I'm not the biggest Slovis guy. Like I've probably already said before, I'm a big JT Daniels fan. USC was able to pull it out though. Drake London, 8 receptions, 125 yards and touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who should probably be a first round prospect, 7 receptions, 100 yards. So USC, it'll be an interesting season. They only have 6 regular season games. They're already 1-0. They don't play Oregon during their regular season, so they'll probably see them in the Pac-12 championship when that comes around, unless they like lose to Utah or Colorado or something like that. But I think Oregon and USC in the Pac-12 championship should be a good game. Hopefully USC just gets a decent bowl game. Even if they run the table, they go 6-0, beat Oregon. They're not making the college football playoff. But I'm just hoping for a good bowl game for USC, but narrowly scraped it out with this one.
It was a good game. Slovis, they were down 14 with under 3 to go. Slovis hit Brew McCoy. It was probably his number 1 target, one of the best receivers in the college football this year, and it was a great catch. And then even the last touchdown, it was 4th and 9, and they had probably like a minute to go. And instead of at the 35, instead of getting that first down, Slovis went all forward to London, who had a great catch, and it was a great throw. It was over double coverage. It was just a great catch. They won the game. It was good job by USC coming back. Me and Dan last week picked them to win this game. You know, we like USC. Slovis, I know he didn't do that good, but showing that he could play like that in crunch time really matters, and that's just a confidence builder for him. It was just his first real start officially. So this is his team now, and now he knows what he needs to do.
Listen, Dan, if you don't want Keaton Slovis on USC, I'll happily take him on Penn State.
It's better than Sean Clifford.
Maybe we can make a swap. We
no.
can work something out. We'll give you like a next year first round pick.
First and second, and then we'll call it a deal.
Put a Chicken Diablo in there. Maybe I'll consider it. Yeah, Keaton Slovis, not the greatest of games. I mean, he threw the ball 55 times. Again, that's probably too much. They still won the game, so you can't say he did bad. If they would have lost, then you could have said it. But The rush attack for USC also did very well. I really don't want to try to pronounce this guy's name because I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to call him Vav. I don't know if anyone's got something to say about that, but he had 8 carries for 60 yards. Marquise Stepp, 14 carries, 53 yards and a touchdown. And Stephen Carr, 10 carries, 45 yards and a touchdown. The rush attack was very nice for USC. That was probably the best part of their game. But Dan also mentioned Drake London and Amara St. Brown had pretty big games. So it was a good overall effort by USC to barely scrape out the win. And as Dan said, the rest of the schedule is very favorable for them. They don't have any too challenging teams. Maybe Utah gives them a run for their money, but it looks like they should have a date with Oregon in the Pac-12 title game because Oregon also has a pretty easy schedule to get through. Their roughest game was probably against Stanford, and they handled them pretty easily, 35-14 on Saturday night. So they should meet in the Pac-12 title game, which should make for a good game. And I think Dan said it right. I don't think USC will do enough to make it to the college football playoff. Maybe Oregon does if a few teams ahead of them slips up, but it's going to take a lot for a Pac-12 team to get into the college football playoff this year, in my personal opinion. Let's talk about my new favorite team, Indiana. Listen, they've moved up, number 10 in the rankings now, and they put on a show against Michigan on Saturday. I don't know what to think of Michigan. I'm going to start with them really quick. They handle Minnesota in their first game of the season, and then they lose to Michigan State, who got hammered by Rutgers and then got hammered over the weekend by Iowa. I don't know what to make of Michigan. I think they're going to drop out of the rankings. Obviously, they're 1-2. They'll beat Penn State when they play them, but that's a different story. But yeah, Indiana looks really good. I'm not going to say they're going to match up with Ohio State this year and beat them, but they look really good. And a team, everyone's like, oh my God, they beat Penn State. Now it looks normal that they beat Penn State. It was like, okay. I said it earlier. You told me Penn State's going to start 0-3. You would told me Indiana's going to start 3-0. And their most impressive win out of those 3 was going to be against Rutgers. Then I would have called you crazy. So I'm going to hand it off to you guys and see what you guys got on number 10 ranked Indiana. Go ahead.
They just, like you said, the 3-0, they just keep winning games. I guess the level of competition, looking at it now with Penn State and Michigan, I don't know who ranked them at the beginning of the season. They're always just, there's a meme, like I don't get the Harbaugh project in Ann Arbor, but Indiana is just playing some good team football, and they're managing to win games. Like you said, against Ohio State, I don't know how well they match up, but in a single game of football, anything can really happen. It's not like in like basketball or baseball or something over an entire 7-game series. Usually the better team wins, but in a single game in football, you never know. But I'd probably obviously still give the edge to Ohio State, but not Wisconsin, sorry. Indiana is just playing some good football right now.
Yeah, yes, they are. They started off hot. Penix Jr. threw 3 touchdowns in the first half, which is just great. They got that hot start, and the passing game. He did throw for 342 yards. Passing game kind of slowed down in the second half, but then Stevie Scott, the running back, ran in for 2 touchdowns second half. They were very balanced. Defense looked good. Melton for Michigan, he didn't have a bad game, but just Indiana's going to be a shocker to some teams. Look at them facing Ohio State. It's going to be fun, especially Justin Fields, who just, he's the Heisman winner as of now, front runner. He's so good, and that Indiana Ohio State game is going to be a great game to watch. I just want to touch that Ohio State game real quick. Fields was 5 touchdowns, passing and 1 rushing for 314 yards, 24 for 28. That's just unheard of. That's my performer of the weekend, and I like Justin Fields a lot. I think he's great. He's always been shadowed. Trevor Lawrence has always been he's always been in Trevor Lawrence's shadow. That's what I meant to say. And he's just proven. So when this Indiana-Ohio State game comes, it'll be a real test for Indiana. And then you'll get to see a great quarterback matchup, Penix Jr. versus Fields.
Yeah, you guys said it right. Indiana's playing really good football as of recently. Michael Penix Jr. continues to, I would say, impress a lot. I would say he was 30 for 50, 342 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Stevie Scott, as mentioned earlier, he also had a very good game, 24 carries, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Ty Frofogel, I think I'm saying that right, 7 receptions, 142 yards, and a touchdown. He had a monster game. And an overall just great performance by Indiana. Anthony said Joe Milton didn't have that bad of a game. I would disagree. I think he had a terrible game. 18 for 34, 344 yards. He had like a Sean Clifford kind of game where he didn't throw the ball as many times, but his stats just weren't that good. And, they were kind of boosted. He also had 2 interceptions, which didn't help him that much. And their running game, Michigan, just never got going. They only had 13 total rushing yards the entire game. Not good. I will give it to them. Ronnie Bell had a very good game, 6 receptions, 149 yards, and a touchdown, along with Cornelius Johnson, 4 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Those 2 had pretty good games, but for Michigan, that was about it. And, we talk about that Ohio State game they're going to have with Indiana. That's going to take place on November 21st. That's going to be in Columbus. That's going to be one hell of a game. I can't wait for it. And Indiana, they're really going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to play Michigan State on November 14th. That'll be their next game. And then they'll play that Ohio State game, and then they'll play Maryland, who have looked pretty impressive so far in their first 3 games. And then they'll have a date with Wisconsin, as long as they get all their COVID issues under control. They'll play them on December 5th, and then they'll wrap up their season December 12th against Purdue. And, I mean, I'm not going to say, but the team, may or may not represent the Big Ten in a Big Ten title game. Who knows? And if they end up doing that, then there's a really good chance we'll see them in a college football playoff. But they got a lot of work to go from here until then to represent the Big Ten in the title game and then maybe even the playoff. But Indiana, as Dan said, they're playing really good football right now. If they continue their winning ways, anything's possible. And, I wouldn't mind seeing them in the college football playoff. So, or a Big Ten title game. Let's get some spice in there. Let's mix things up a little bit. I think those are all the big games that we wanted to mention. Did you guys have anything else in college football you wanted to highlight?
No, just, with that loss we mentioned a little earlier with that loss for Clemson and then that win with Florida, just 2 big things that happen that are going to determine the future for both schools. And you just got to stay on standby. It's college football. Dom said like how, Indiana might have a chance. Anything could happen. That's one of the greatest things about the sport. There's no set favorite because it could be just that team's day.
Okay, well, let me ask you this before we move off of college football real quick. Let's change the date. Let's say it is whatever decision day is. I believe it's December 20-something. And we're deciding the 4 teams to get into the college football playoff. Who's in right now?
Right now,
You first.
I feel like Alabama's definitely in. As right now, Notre Dame has to be in. And then, I mean, I guess it's probably boring, but the top 4, I think it's right. Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson, unless like the ACC championship will be a big decider as well as the SEC championship with how Florida or even A&M too, right? They're in the SEC. So if they beat, they're in Alabama's division. Correct?
Yeah.
So if they beat Alabama and they beat Florida,
Alabama already destroyed them. That's why
that was their
Texas.
loss.
Yeah, that's why
That's
Texas
their lone
A&M
loss.
can't make it because they're
That's
in
not
the
true at
West
all.
of
They could very
Bama.
well make it.
Well,
Not the SEC
if
title
Bama
game, but they could make
falls
the college
off,
football playoff.
if Bama falls off, if they lose, but Bama has their toughest. They have Arkansas. They play LSU the weekend coming up now, and they have LSU, Arkansas or Arkansas, and then Auburn. Left.
Is there not a West and East playing before the SEC championship, or they
Yeah, just the
just
2 top
decide?
seeds. It's like the
Oh,
winners.
okay.
So it'll be Florida's in. If we ended like how Dom said, today's the date we ended how it is now. It'll be Florida versus Alabama. But then Florida did lose to Texas A&M, and that's one of their losses. But because A&M got destroyed by Bama, they can't hop it without Bama losing 2 games. But then if I had to pick, I'll be Bama the 1 seed, 2 Ohio State, 3 Notre Dame, and then 4 Clemson. And then my team that has a chance would be Florida, and they have to blow every team out, and then they have to win the SEC game. Or if Notre Dame has Boston College and North Carolina within the next 2 weeks, and North Carolina was ranked, and Boston College almost beat Clemson. So and Notre Dame's like hot, like they were hot this week, and then you remember like games before where they're just stagnant. They weren't impressive at all. So the 4 teams I had of Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Clemson, the only other team I think that has a chance of making it is Florida or Indiana too. If they beat Ohio State in the 21st, you said, right, Dom?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I don't know how you can put Ohio State ahead of Notre Dame. I know the win against Clemson probably should have a asterisk next to it, but Ohio State's beaten Rutgers, Penn State, and who else?
Nebraska.
Like, I don't know. They don't have a outstanding victory for me.
but they have a better wins, and the Big Ten is 1,000 times better than the ACC. Notre Dame just got added to that. If they weren't,
But that
in
win
the-
against Clemson, I feel
Yeah.
like trumps. I don't care about the
Clemson's-
other competition in like the lower teams, but
no, you just
that
said
beating
that
of Clemson.
like the Notre Dame beating Clemson, or you just said Ohio State beat the Penn State, Nebraska, and then Rutgers. That's not like good talent. That talent's better than the talent that Notre Dame and Clemson, besides facing each other, is seeing in the ACC.
But that's enough for me because they face each other.
Well, as I said, there's a long way to go in the season, and it's very possible this is the top 4 that we do end up getting in the college football playoff. Anthony makes a good point. Florida can sneak in. I also do think Texas A&M could still potentially get in, as long as they run the table and the dice cast their way. And the same thing goes for Cincinnati, in my opinion. If teams ahead of them lose, it's going to be rough for them, considering it'll most likely maybe we'll see Indiana hop up. They'll obviously overtake them. And they would need other teams to lose. They'd probably need Clemson to lose in the ACC title game, and they would need a bunch of other things to happen. But it's very possible that Cincinnati does end up making another 7 right now, only behind Florida and Texas A&M as the first 2 out. So it's very possible, but I agree with you guys. The top 4 right now is probably Alabama, and I would say it's interchangeable between Notre Dame and Ohio State for 2 and 3, and then it's Clemson. I think you both make good points about who should be 2 and who should be 3. Notre Dame, obviously 7 games played, and they have that win over against when they were the number 1 team in the country, Clemson. And Ohio State doesn't really have much. Dan says he makes a good point there. But Anthony also makes a good point where the Big Ten competition is probably slightly better than the ACC competition. So it's interchangeable between those 2 teams. But if the season were to end today, those would be the top 4, in my opinion. I don't think, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't think you can really make a case that Texas A&M should be in over Clemson. Yeah, there's not really a case that Florida should be in over any of those teams. And the rest goes for the other teams as of right now. But again, we've still got a while to go in the season. Anything can happen. It's the great thing about this sport. And I think that'll wrap up the college football for us now. Why don't we move in? We'll move into some quick news. We mentioned it on the last podcast. The NBA has officially agreed to a 72-game season, slated to start on December 22nd. Thoughts on that real quick, guys?
I like it. I like it. I think it's quick and easy. It's not as much games. Plus, I think they're probably by this week they're going to confirm that they're going to do that 7 to 10 tournament, which I think is just going to be cool. And you're going to see a lot more players having the star players not sitting out as much because they have to win these games.
I'm just glad that we're gonna get an NBA season. 72 games. It's obviously it's 10 less games than what we're used to, but I don't think it's that drastic, if you know what I mean. Like the MLB played 102 less games. Like that was a lot different. I don't know how much the standings will shift with 10 less games, if you get what I'm saying. Like I don't know if we're gonna see a Tampa Bay being the first seed kind of thing. So I'm just glad that we're getting some basketball.
Yeah, that makes a good point right there. I think the 72 games is less games, obviously, but it's not going to play too much of a factor, I would say. Like he said, the MLB only played 60 games compared to their normal 162, which is a huge difference. We'll probably still see the Lakers at the top of the West, along with the Nuggets, the Clippers, maybe the Trailblazers put their hat in there, maybe
Jazz, probably.
Jazz, maybe the Grizzlies, they can come back finally, Warriors. And then the East will probably look the same. We'll see the Bucks, the Raptors, the Celtics, Sixers, Pacers. We'll see those teams toward the top. I don't think we'll see any surprising teams. It's not like the Wizards are going to come out here and get the 3rd seed. That won't happen. If it was a 30-game season, maybe then we can make the case for that. But it's 72. I don't think 10 games is going to make too much of a difference. But, regardless, it's just good to have an NBA season. I think it is going to set the record for shortest amount of time in between seasons with, I believe, 70-something days in between the end of last season and the start of the next season. So, interesting note. But, yeah, let's continue. Some quick hockey news. Columbus Blue Jackets, Tyler Nyquist, along with stars Tyler Seguin and Ben Bishop, they will all be out for at least 5 months. They all had surgery. So big losses for both those teams, especially for the Stars. Seguin, big player for them. Bishop, he's looking like he's going to be the backup after the good performance. I can't remember the name off the top of my head in the Stanley Cup playoff from the other goalkeeper. But Ben Bishop's a good goalie regardless, so that's going to be a big loss. And of course, Tyler Seguin's a big playmaker for them, so he's going to be a big loss. And the same goes for the Blue Jackets. Nyquist, big playmaker for them. He's going to be out for a while. It's looking like the season's going to start around New Year's, so they'll miss a decent part of the season. With the playoffs, probably they're going to start, I would probably say mid-April, if not early May, because I think they are going to try and squeeze 82 games in, maybe less. But we'll see what happens. Thoughts on that real quick, guys?
Just a bit like you said, big loss for both teams. Sagan is a central part of that Stars team that made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. So they'll have to try to recoup some wins and some points before he comes back.
Yeah. Did they? I know the first Stanley Cup ended in September, right? That's when the winner was.
It was around then, I think. It's been a while. So.
Yeah. Why did they just get hurt now, or like I don't understand why they couldn't got it after?
Well, they had surgery. They didn't get hurt.
Why couldn't they get the surgery right after? Because
I think it takes time to. That's a big thing, I don't just.
Saquon just got surgery.
Yeah,
and it
takes time. I think they
like
wanted
2
opinions on it. They wanted to make sure who's the best, where the best surgeon is. I don't know. I'll call Tyler Seguin tomorrow morning and I'll let you know, Anthony. Okay.
Just big losses for their team.
Big loss,
think that you probably should try to get it earlier.
Well, it was like when I think Alshon Jeffrey had the rotator cuff injury that year they won the Super Bowl. He didn't get surgery until like maybe 2 months after they won the Super Bowl, and he had that rotator cuff injury the entire season.
Yeah,
so,
it's a big decision to make.
It's a big decision, yeah. Because sometimes surgery keep you out longer, but it'll make sure you're healthier. So, I'm no doctor. I don't know why he did it, but regardless, big losses. And the last bit of news we got, Darren Till, the Gorilla, he's going to be out of his scheduled fight against Jack Hermanson in December, which would have been a big middleweight clash. Kevin Holland is going to make his 5th appearance of 2020 as he looks to go 5-0 in the year. He's going to go up against Jack Hermanson. Hermanson's camp said they did want to find another ranked opponent for him, but they just couldn't, and they wanted to get another fight in before the year closed. So he's going to fight Kevin Holland now. I believe that fight's going to take place in the second week of December. Maybe first week. It is early December. That fight's going to take place, though. A big fight regardless in the middleweight division, especially if Kevin Holland can come in there and get his 5th win of 2020. Thoughts on that, guys?
I just got to applaud Holland for just stepping up and taking a 5th fight of the year. And if he can go 5-0, be very impressive, very good on his resume. I mean, sometimes these fighters don't fight. They fight like once a year, and this guy is taking his 5th fight of the calendar year. So a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, I totally agree. In all sports, I dislike a lot when people are like, I'm not gonna play every game, or I'm gonna wait. Like, if I'm gonna fight once a year, like how Dan said, or Dom said, just I have to applaud him. He's like, he's having fun. He's not doing it for the money. He's just having fun, fighting people and beating them up with 4-0 in 2020. So I just got to applaud him. He's like he's in athlete that I love to see that doesn't care, like I said, about the money. He just wants to do his job, play the sport because he's blessed and lucky enough to do it because it's hard to get to a professional sport. So just, hats off to him.
Yeah, Kevin Holland, he just fought last week on the Anderson Silva Uriah Hall card. Obviously a win. He's 4-0 in the year 2020 so far. And if he can go in there and beat Jack Hermanson, that's a very, very impressive win. Dan, when we went to the UFC event last year in Philadelphia, Hermanson was on that card. And I don't know if you remember, but I was fanboying over him in the submission victory he had.
I really remember that.
So I like Jack
fun.
Hermanson. He's got a very good skill set. If Kevin Holland can go in there and beat him, that'd be very impressive, I would say. Hermanson, he's on a very nice tear of his own. So if as Kevin Holland, if he wins this fight, that's going to skyrocket his, availability. I would say the way you can market him. Dana White would be able to do wonders with that guy in the middleweight division that needs a new challenger. I would say after if Israel Adesanya does move up to fight Jan Blachowicz, maybe he can fight Robert Whitaker early next year or something like that. So we'll have to see what happens. That fight, as I said, is going to take place some point in December. Not entirely sure the exact date, but it'll be a fun one, and you can be sure we'll be talking about it more, and I'll be talking about it more as we get closer to that date. All right, so that's all of our quick news. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about while we're on the quick news part?
Nope.
Don't think so.
Perfect. Let's move right on in to soccer, and we'll take our first look at the Sports King board for this episode. We mentioned a lot of games on the last podcast, the biggest of them being Manchester City and Liverpool. They drew 1-1. And then we talked about Bayern Dortmund, where Bayern won the game 3-2. Lazio Juve ended in a 1-1 draw. Manchester United, they handled Everton 3-1. And then Leicester City also handled Wolves 1-0. Dan, why don't you go ahead and take over for soccer?
Yeah, I guess I'm just going to start right away with my prediction from the last podcast. So I said that Liverpool was going to beat Manchester City, and they drew 1-1. Mohamed Salah scored, and then I think Gabby Jesus scored. And it probably each team probably deserved a point. They were kind of trading chances back and forth. No one's really creating anything great. Kevin De Bruyne did miss a penalty, so I guess maybe City probably should have got ahead if he would have converted it. But I think Liverpool they had more shots. So I was wrong. So I'm currently 0-3. This one it wasn't as bad as the other ones. I mean, it's not like Liverpool got blown out the water or anything, but disappointing result for them. They dropped to third, and then I guess this segues perfectly into the other match. Leicester City defeat Wolves 1-0, and they're now atop the Premier League. Just a great win for them. They're just pulling good wins against good teams. Even though I think Wolves is 13th right now, they're a good team. They're a top half team. They're challenging in Europe, and just Jamie Vardy, man. People keep on, doubting him, trying to put him away. Last year's Golden Boot winner in the Premier League, and he just continues to score and score and score. He scored again on a penalty. Leicester, though, I feel like definitely deserved the win and sitting pretty atop the Premier League right now. I guess going to those other games, one more, or I'll go two more in the Premier League. Manchester United defeat Everton 1-0. Everton the past couple weeks, they started off the season red hot, the 4-0, but now deserved loss to Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes played a great game, 2 goals and an assist. Edison Cavani gets his first Premier League goal for Manchester United, so it's good to see if you're a United fan. I really don't get United. Their form so up and down. There's such a weird one to dissect, but it's a win that they definitely needed, and I think Everton slipped. They slipped all the way down to 7th after 3 straight losses, but they do have Fulham after the international break, who are towards the bottom of the league, so maybe they can get back on track. And then the last game in the Premier League, Aston Villa defeated Arsenal 3-0. That's a big win for Villa. They They're currently on 15 points with a game in hand. So if they were to win, they'd be tied with Leicester at the top. Saka had an own goal, and then Ollie Watkins had a brace. He's played fantastic for them. He came up from the championship after a great season with Brentford, and he's just been great. And Villa, who many thought could probably go down, are probably already securing a spot in the Premier League. They're not going to finish like, Europa League or anything like that, but a good top half finish for them could be very well, bring some money in, and then keep on with the project. I guess, Dom, do you want to talk about Serie A really quick? Talk about that Juventus game.
Yeah, Juve. Cristiano Ronaldo scores in a 1-1 draw, and it was kind of a tap-in goal, but a goal nonetheless. It was just a poor performance from Juve, I would say. Lazio, they nagged the point right at the end, right there. 95th minute, they scored in. Just poor defending from Juve right at the end, and I believe Cristiano Ronaldo did go off injured. Not entirely sure the severity of the injury quite yet, but again, we'll be sure to tell you about it when we find out. Juve just doesn't look good right now. I think they're still trying to learn Pirlo's system and what he's trying to do and what he's trying to work out. So I think as the season continues to go on, they should do better. But they definitely need to improve on what they're doing now. The midfield's not creating enough opportunities for them. I think they need to make a big midfield signing if they can in the winter window or in next summer window. But Rabiot is just not cutting it. Ramsey's hurt again. Bentancur, he's not. Yeah, he's okay, but he's not there quite yet. We swapped Pjanic to get Artur, and he's barely playing a lot. And when he is, he's just not doing enough. And he's not a midfielder, but Paulo Dybala has just not been looking good at all. I'm not really sure what's going on with him. When Alvaro Morata is looking better than you, not a good sign. But Cristiano Ronaldo scores again, so he's doing wonders like he usually does. So they need to improve. I believe Atalanta and Inter, they also drew. So the Serie A table right now, AC Milan does still sit at the top of the table with 17 points going into the international break, with Sassuolo sitting in second place with 15 points, followed by Napoli and Roma, who both share 14, and then Juve sits in fifth with 13. Dan also brought up the Premier League. I'll talk about their table really quick. Leicester City does sit at the top with 18 points. Tottenham and Liverpool both behind with 17. Southampton sits in fourth place with 16 points, and Chelsea, they have 15, sitting in fifth. We'll talk about the other top 5 leagues in Europe as well. Bundesliga, Bayern sits with 18 points at the top of the table. Leipzig behind them with 16. Dortmund with 15. Leverkusen also has 15. And Union Berlin, they have 12. In La Liga, Real Sociedad sits at the top of the table right now with 20 points. Behind Villarreal, who has 18, Atletico Madrid, who has 17, Real Madrid, who has 16, and Granada, who has 14. I believe Barcelona sits in 8th place right now in that table. So they still got a bit of work to do. 2 games in hand, so they have a bit of work to do to get back not only in the top 5, but the top of the table as they bounce back when international break resumes. And finally, in Ligue 1, PSG have a comfortable lead right now, 5 points ahead. With 24, followed by Lille, who has 19, Stade Rennes, who has 18, Marseille also has 18, and Lyon, they have 17. So those are the top 5 in Europe going into the international break. And we'll look at the Sports King board real quick. All the international games to take place over the course of the next couple of weeks, they're all friendlies, so none of them really matter. But here's some fun ones you could look out for. The Netherlands, they play Spain on November the 11th. And the Wales play our own, the United States, on November the 12th. So just some fun games. International soccer is always fun to watch, fun to root for your nation. So, I'll be looking out for Italy. These guys will be looking out for Argentina. And, of course, I'll be rooting for the U.S. So
Wales too.
Yep.
Can't forget our dad.
There we go. So it'll be a house divided when the United States plays Wales on the 12th. So, maybe we'll tune into the Price household for that game. We'll see what happens. But I think that's all we got for soccer. Dan, unless you got anything else you want to touch upon?
Yeah, I guess one thing. So also over the weekend, Real Madrid lost to Valencia 4-1. And that's pretty big. So a good game for Valencia. They did score 3 penalties and then an own goal. So, a bit iffy, but they definitely deserve the win. And with that being said, I think this year, with the state of Real Madrid and Barcelona, this is a year that Atletico should win the title. So right now they're in third, but they do have 2 games in hand. So feasibly they could be, if they would win those two, they'd be at 23 points with Sociedad at 20. And they're doing very well in the league. 5 wins, 2 draws, no losses. I think this is 17 goals for, 2 goals against. So Simeone's men have just been playing really well this year. And I think that they should focus on the league because they'll always perform well in Europe. But with like I said, Barcelona and Real Madrid playing so poorly, and João Felix playing extremely well next to Luis Suarez, it'll be very sweet for Luis Suarez if he could help Atletico Madrid win the title for the first time in I think 6 years. I think they won in 2014. So just keep an eye on the La Liga race. So, but sorry, Atletico Madrid, I feel like they have a very, very good shot just with the state of the other clubs right now. They could possibly win the title. And I think this is the best year for it before Madrid go out and sign Mbappe or like Camavinga or Haaland, something along those lines. So just keep an eye on that. And then yeah, that's what I'd say.
And you
So
can be
we're
sure
good.
we will tell you about all of the top 5 European leagues and their tables every single chance we can get. So let's move on from soccer, and we'll move on to the UFC. A pretty big light heavyweight main event on Saturday night. Glover Teixeira put his 4-fight win streak on the line against Thiago Santos, and a full-on Brazilian main event. And the fight went exactly as I said it would. If you check out the last podcast, when the fight was on the feet, it was all Thiago Santos, and when the fight was on the ground, it was all Glover Teixeira. So I'm gonna hand this off to you guys first, and then I'll give my take on it.
Yeah, just kind of like you said, it went how you did. I'm a bit disappointed. If you tuned in the last one, you would have heard me say that Thiago Santos is my favorite fighter in the UFC. I love watching him fight. This fight, I didn't get to watch him full, but I got to watch some highlights, look at the stats, and just when like Dom said, when he was on his feet, he was doing great. But I don't know why he almost allowed sometimes for Teixeira to take to the ground. He had 2 knockdowns, and then he jumped on top of him after he got knocked down. He should not have done that. He should have let him get back up and then keep it on the stand up. So I don't know if it was just he was very eager, if there was just a mental lapse, if his team was telling him that he should go after him right after he knocked him down. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's next for him. I hope he can put on a string of good performances because he won like 4 in a row and then he's lost his last 2. But I hope he finds what's best for him because I'm a big fan. I love watching him fight. But Teixeira, he made with the opportunities he got, and he definitely deserved the win. I can't take that away from him.
Yes, I picked a share win on the last podcast. Santos did like what Dan said. I didn't know when he knocked him down twice. I don't know why he hopped on the ground, just to play to like his weakness basically because he's better up standing and just I think I don't know his coaches probably just made him so excited and say go now get him. But if he would stay, let him get back up because he was dominating standing up. I think Santos should have won that fight if he didn't have those. If he didn't just hop to the ground and then lose points, get to the ground, get tired, and let Teixeira play his game and not Santos play his. So it was a good fight. I don't know what each of these are going to do after this fight, but Dom can tell you.
Yeah, you guys hit the nail right on the head. It was the first minute or minute and a half into the first round. Santos had a knockdown already, and he jumped right on top of Teixeira, and Teixeira controlled the fight on the ground for the rest of the first round, and then he dominated the entirety of the second round. Would have won the fight in the second round. He locked in a rear naked choke with like 5 seconds left, so obviously there wasn't enough time to finish it. But if there was more time on the clock, he would have finished it in the second round. And then the same thing happened in the third round. Santos had him rocked again, and Teixeira was knocked down, and he jumped right on top of him, which is a dumb move if you're asking me. And Teixeira finished it there. There's no doubt about it. Rear naked choke finish. A little more than a minute and a half into the third round. I don't know what Santos's game plan was, if I'm being honest. He wasn't maintaining distance enough. Teixeira was landing good takedowns, and whenever the fight was on the ground, Santos just really never stood a chance. And which is why it didn't make sense for me when he hopped on top of him both times when he knocked him down. I don't know why he would do that. It didn't make sense to me. He was obviously dominating the fight on the stand-up. He was going to finish the fight. Probably would have knocked him out had he just stayed on his feet for majority of the fight. But I get it. He probably had that adrenaline rushing through his body. He saw the opportunity to finish the fight. He jumped on top of it, but it just didn't work out for him. Glover Teixeira, so much experience in the fight game, and another impressive performance. What's next for these guys? I genuinely have no clue. I talked about in the last podcast with Israel Adesanya potentially getting the next shot at Jan Blachowicz. I don't know where Glover Teixeira goes. For me, I would give him the title shot over Izzy, just because I still think Izzy should fight Robert Whittaker. But for Thiago Santos, again, I'm not entirely sure what's next for him. He's in his mid-30s. I don't think he's going to retire unless he really wants to. But I don't know who he could fight next. He could look to fight Alexander Rakic possibly. I think Dominic Reyes already has the next fight, but if something falls through in that, he could fight him maybe. But for Glover Teixeira, he shouldn't take a title shot, or he shouldn't take a fight until it's a title shot, because it just doesn't make sense for him. It wouldn't make sense for him to fight anyone else in this division right now, unless it were Jan Blachowicz, because no one else has anything to offer him. He's beaten the top guys so far to get to this point. He dominated against Anthony Smith in May. He dominated against Thiago Santos in this fight past Saturday. So realistically, he shouldn't have another fight until it's a title fight. Unless the name next to his name is Jan Blachowicz, he should not sign any contract. And it just wouldn't make sense for him unless he decides, oh, I'm going to move up to heavyweight and try my luck there, which wouldn't make any sense. But it's title shot or bust for him, honestly. And there's no way, as I said, I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but he shouldn't take any other fight besides Jan Blachowicz. And Dana White even said he's got to consider him now after an impressive performance against, a highly rated Thiago Santos. And now he's definitely the number one contender in the light heavyweight division. So it wouldn't make sense to throw an interim title out there for him, because no one else in the division has done enough to deserve an interim title shot. If you're asking me. Again, maybe I don't know, if he gets bored and he decides he wants to fight Alexander Rakic instead of Thiago Santos, it could happen. But I wouldn't advise it, Glover Teixeira, if you're out there watching this. So I think that's all I have to say on that. Very impressive win from Glover Teixeira. Andrei Arlovsky got a win. He got a win in the co-main event. He got a unanimous decision against Tanner Bauser. And the card was kind of weak, but Claudia Gadelha fought Jan Zenonen. I'm probably saying that name wrong. Jan Zenonen wins the fight. She improves to 13-1, so she could be a force to be reckoned with in the women's strawweight division in the future. So we'll have to watch her career very closely. One fight was scrapped due to COVID, and it was the fight I was kind of looking forward to. Ian Hinch, he got his fight scrapped, which is kind of unfortunate for me because I was looking forward to it. But maybe they can reschedule that fight, and we'll see it in the near future, or anything for Ian Hinch in the near future. I like him. I think he's got some stuff in him, and I think that's all we got for UFC. And I guess let's move right in. NFL Week 9. We started the week Thursday Night Football. The Packers, they played the 49ers. Aaron Rodgers had an absolute monster of a game, 25 of 31. 305 yards, 4 touchdowns. Devontae Adams, he did his thing yet again. 10 catches for 173 yards and a touchdown. Aaron Jones, he was a game-high decision. He did play. He didn't do all that well. He did have 15 carries, 58 yards, and another impressive victory for the Packers against the bang-out 49ers team, 34-17. I'm going to hand this off to you guys. What do you guys got?
The Packers just said, too much ammunition for a depleted 49ers team. It's unfortunate because we know how good they can be. Sorry. They deservedly made it to the Super Bowl last year. I think so. At least they smoked the Packers in the NFC Championship. Raheem Mostert had I think 4 touchdowns that game. But Nick Mullins didn't play amazing. I mean, he didn't do like terrible or anything like that. Richie James, I think his name is, had an exceptional game. So maybe that's something 49ers fans can be positive about. But it's a good win, good statement win from the Packers, coming off a loss to the Vikings. But I feel like the Packers have to be a little bit more consistent if they want to be super serious contenders in the NFC, because they go and lose the game to the Buccaneers, and then they have a statement win against the Texans, and then they go lose to the Vikings, and they have a statement win against the 49ers on Thursday. But I feel like you have to be playing more consistent. But I think with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, this is a lethal team, and I don't know if there's, especially after another team's result today, I don't know if there's an outstanding team in the NFC that's like, oh, okay, yeah, they definitely make it to the Super Bowl. So the Packers are definitely still in the hunt.
Yeah, it was a great game by Adams and Rogers. That chemistry there is just crazy, and it like we did. I think all three of us. I know me and Dan did. We did kind of bash the Packers for not getting anyone at the trade deadline, that receiver to help Rogers, but then others stand it up or stood up. I guess that's how you say it. Valdez Scanlon 2 touchdowns. You know, Aaron Jones didn't have that good of a game. I'm not high on Aaron Jones. I don't think he's like a star running back, but just the Packers consistency is probably key. How Dan said, Buccaneers getting embarrassed by Buccaneers and statement wins, and then losing to what was like the 1-5 Vikings. Now they just have to work on consistency. No, there's no team in the NFL. I don't even think AFC or NFC, after watching this week, that is they're guaranteed to the Super Bowl. There's no team that's higher or has more talent than everyone that's like standing out to me. But just good win by the Packers.
Yeah, good win by the Packers. They moved to 6-2. Uh, they're looking like they could be contenders in the NFC, but again, weird wins. They got absolutely destroyed by the Buccaneers, and then the weird loss to the Vikings. So we're going to see where they go with their season. But again, Dan mentioned with another result, it's not really looking like too obvious about who's going to be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl this year. But I think as time goes on, we'll figure out who are the contenders and who are the pretenders in the NFC. And I genuinely think the Packers are one of the contenders. I think we do see them in an NFC Championship game. Not sure about a Super Bowl. I guess it depends on who they match up with. But I could see they should win the North, I think, pretty easily. And then I could see them making the NFC title game again, possibly winning it this time around. But we'll have to see. We'll continue. The Sunday games, again, they provided. We'll start out. The Falcons, they played the Broncos. Interesting game. Drew Lock, he had a pretty good game. 25-48, 313 yards, 2 touchdowns. I believe he did an interception as well. And Matt Ryan also had a pretty good game. 25-35, 284 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have an interception. The Falcons were without Calvin Ridley, but that didn't really seem to be a problem for them. Julio Jones, he was getting in the mix. And they also had a couple other wide receivers have pretty good games. Todd Gurley, he had 53 rushing yards and a touchdown. And Jerry Jeudy, I would say he had his breakout game today. 7 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown. I'll hand this off to you guys and tell me what you got.
It's just happy. Well, not happy, but if you're a Falcons fan, you're happy that they didn't choke the lead. Drew Lock kind of started another comeback, but wasn't able to see it through. Like you said, even without Calvin Ridley, the Atlanta receivers stepped up. Zacchaeus 4 catches, 103 yards. So Hayden Hurst had a pretty good game too, 7 receptions, 62 yards. So Atlanta, like you said, we've discussed it before, they're not making the playoffs this year, but just getting together, a string of a few good games, just to kind of have some positivity looking for next season. We'll see what they can do in the offseason and the draft. But a good win for the Falcons and the Broncos after an impressive comeback last week. Almost do it again, but not quite. Like you said, it's good to see Jerry Jeudy having a good game. They drafted him high in the first round, so they're looking for Drew Lock to, develop a connection with him. So a somewhat telling game for both these teams, but a good win for the Falcons nonetheless.
Yeah, Falcons, people stepped up. Zacchaeus, honestly, up to this week, I never heard of him. He has such a good game. No Ridley, so someone has to step up. Falcons are just competing. That's all they can do. They know they're not making it. Everyone's future is, in the air after the season. So they're just there to basically prove that we don't want to leave this place. We can still play. The Broncos, I was high on the Broncos, but now I'm like mediocre about them. Judy and Hamler did very good. Their first and second round pick. Judy did a very smart play, which I wish we had a board that could show it on. Hopefully, for one day we get famous. Just he was, it was just he was going out for his route and he put his hand up and pointed like I'm ready, like it was a go route, and the cornerback fell for it. He ran another 10 yards. Judy cut back on like a curl, called it, and just scored a touchdown off of it. Just he's a rookie, but that impressed me a lot. That was like a veteran play, tricking the defender like that. Drew Lock, just he's showing up in the end of the game, but he's got to be there the whole time. He's got to stop dancing and everything. Honestly, at first I was like, okay, I like it. He's winning and he's dancing, but now he just lost to the Falcons, who's one of the worst teams in the league, and he can't show up in the first half, and that's not okay. You have to be there. It's okay once in a while, you might not have that good half, but it's just being consistent now, and it's not a good sign to me for the Broncos. He's got to be there the whole time. And I love Drew Lock. I had him as an MVP candidate before this season, but he's just got to do better.
Yeah, shout out to the Falcons. They finally held on to one. The score was 20-3 at halftime, and the Broncos, they almost made a miraculous comeback. They scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. They had a chance at the end of the game. They didn't quite convert it. Again, lost the game by a touchdown. And you guys, all made really good points. Falcons receivers, they stepped up without Calvin Ridley. Julio Jones did his thing, as we always know he does. The run game for both teams didn't really excite, but Todd Gurley, he had a pretty decent game. 53 yards and a touchdown, as I said earlier. And a good win for the Falcons. Again, just something to build on for next year. And a tough loss for the Broncos. Had they won this game, they would have put them at 4-4 at 500, and they would have started maybe thinking about playoffs, seeing what they could have done. But that might be out of the picture now at 3-5. But again, you never know.
Unless you're in the NFC East.
Yeah, they'd be tied or they'd be, I guess, half game behind the Eagles for first with the tie. But yeah, the Falcons, good thing to build on for next year. See what they can do the rest of the season. Their interim coach, he's performing well since he's been appointed as the interim coach. And I think that's all I got on this game. Next game, we saw two of the top teams in the NFL face off when the Seahawks made their way over to Orchard Park to play the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills they kind of dominated for, I would say, 90% of this game. At one point it was, I think, 27-20. It was close, but then the Bills started pulling away again, and they ended up winning the game 44-34. Josh Allen probably has the best game of his career, I would say. 31-38, 415 yards, 3 touchdowns with the air, and 1 rushing touchdown as well. Just an overall very good performance for the Buffalo Bills. Besides their run game, they only had 34 rushing yards. But Stephon Diggs, he had 9 catches for 118 yards. John Brown had 8 catches for 99 yards. And Gabriel Davis had 4 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. So you guys can go. What do you guys got on this?
Yeah, you kind of hit it. Josh Allen just played out of his mind. He outdueled Russell Wilson, who in this game had 2 interceptions as well. Both teams couldn't really run the ball. On Seattle side, DJ Dallas, 31 yards and a touchdown. Not too great. I mean, he only rushed the ball 7 times, so I can't really fault him for that. Just because the game script, everyone was just trying to outscore the opponent. But this Seattle defense, it's like I said earlier, uh, the result from today was quite telling about the NFC. This game is what I was talking about, because if they would have won, it would if Seattle would have won, it would have been a good win against a good team, and they would move to 7-1. Now they're 6-2, and it's this defense. It's a problem. 44 points. I think that's the most under the Pete Carroll era, but they can't rely on Russell Wilson to he scored 34 points in two separate occasions and lost. That can't be happening if you want to compete deep into the playoffs in the Super Bowl. Obviously, Russell Wilson is a fantastic quarterback, and he can pull out games, but the defense has to improve to be a serious title contender.
Yep, I agree. The Seahawks, it was great to see Jamal Adams back today. He had a good game. And then the Bills, Josh Allen, just unbelievable. Bills defense looked like the defense that we all knew. The past couple of weeks, Bills defense was not good at all. But it was good to see the Bills defense back. Just like what Dan said, Russell Wilson, he scored more than 30 points. It reminds me, our Uncle Bill, me and Dan, Dom, but Dom calls him Uncle Bill too. He always said to me, if because we're both Patriots fans, he's from Boston, he lived there. He's always said to me that if the Patriots don't score 30 points, that he does not feel safe with the defense. If they with the defense they have, they don't score 30 points, they'll lose. And Russell Wilson put up 30 points and they still lost. That's a problem. That's not the offense's fault at all. You did the job. You scored 30 points. That's all in the defense. Losing Clowney was big, but there's got to be a talk. The Seahawks used to be known as the Legion of Boom, that scary defense that you never wanted to go up against. And now that culture has changed. They're known as that offensive firepower team. But it was just a great game. It was great to see the Bills being the Bills like we saw in the first couple of weeks. Josh Allen looks like he's back, and hopefully they just can keep that rolling.
Yeah, quick little shout out to Uncle Bill. If you're out there, Uncle Bill,
Mhm.
what's up? But yeah, it's the big problem is the Seattle defense. It's just not good. Anthony just said it. They used to be the Legion of Boom. I think everyone remembers that amazing defense that they had. You never wanted to go up against Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman. Any of those guys.
They made Byron Maxwell look good.
Yeah, I mean that guy went to the Eagles and looked like the worst corner in the league. So
For a lot of money too.
yeah. Anthony said Jamal Adams came back. I don't know why you said he had a good game. No one on that defense had a good game. But Russell Wilson, he didn't have the greatest of games either. 28-41, 390 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have a rushing touchdown, but then again also had 2 interceptions and then 2 fumbles, both lost. DK Metcalf, David Moore, they continue to do very good. DK Metcalf had 7 catches for 108 yards and a touchdown. David Moore had 4 for 71 and a touchdown. So, I mean, it's not like the Seahawks offense played bad, but it's just that their defense isn't giving them any help. Dan said DJ Dallas, he also had a rushing touchdown. I feel like they didn't get their run game involved. I said the Bills only had 34 rushing yards. The Seahawks only had 57. So none of them really had their rushing offenses involved. I guess it didn't really matter. They both put up the same amount of points. I hope you took the over for this game. But yeah, it's good. I've been pretty down on the Bills. I've been saying they've been going like this for the past couple of weeks. But it's good to see them bounce back. Josh Allen, I feel like early in the season, people were saying he was in the MVP conversation, and then he started tailing off. And it's like, oh, why are we saying he's in the MVP conversation? He showed why he should be in it. I think personally for me, he's probably not in it, but I think you can make the case that he is in it. And just an overall good game from the Bills. I think they still need to work on their defense just a tad bit. Giving up 34 points isn't the greatest. Granted, they were up big for most of that game. So both teams do need a little bit of help on defense, just fix things up, especially Seattle. And I think if both these teams can get their run game involved, that would help out tremendously. I know Seattle is without their top two backs with Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde both out. But that's not really an excuse for the Bills. They still have Singletary. They still have Moss. I think if they run the ball a little bit more, Josh Allen's pretty good running the ball too. So maybe get some like RPOs in there, some good stuff. Make your offense a little spicy. Make a run for the AFC. Who knows? Next game, bit of a weird game, I would say. It was kind of over by the start of the fourth quarter. Titans, they played the Bears. Titans win the game 24-17. Nick Foles throws the ball 52 times, ends up with 335 yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 21 carries for 68 yards. A.J. Brown also had 4 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown. What do we got on this game, guys?
Yeah, like you said, it wasn't really much of a contest. Neither team could run the ball, even though Derrick Henry had 68 rushing yards, 21 carries, and then Montgomery 14 carries for 30 yards. So neither team could really run the ball. Foles threw the ball entirely too much, 52 attempts in one game. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over or anything. Tannehill didn't really have the greatest game either. 10 for 21, 158 and 2 touchdowns. So two passes out of the 10 he completed with touchdowns. A.J. Brown had a good game, but a good win for the Titans. The Bears usually make games pretty ugly, and that's what they did with this one. But it's, after a loss to Cincinnati, coming back and beating a team like the Bears, they're still, they're able to compete. Whether you think they're good or not is, I guess, up for debate. I know how Anthony feels about them, but they can compete, and just it's a very solid win for the Titans.
Yeah, good win by the Titans. Just I think anytime the Bears play, it's just the most boring thing you'll ever watch. I'll rather watch paint dry, honestly.
Patriots games are pretty boring too.
I'm speaking so you can mute your mic.
Wow.
So just no running. Like 68 yards is not a lot, especially for Derrick Henry, and that was in 21 carries. Just I don't know. It was just a boring, ugly game. The Bears are now on a 2-game losing streak, right? Yeah, the Saints
Oh,
last
Is
week.
as good as mine.
Yeah, Saints last week. So they're going down. I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs. I don't consider them for a wild card. They're a pretender, not a contender.
They're
So
vacant.
it's just an ugly game. Good win by Titans. I'm not a fan about the Bears. I love Nick Foles to death. I miss him in Philadelphia, but they need a new quarterback.
The Bears need a new quarterback. What do they do? Mitch Trubisky is not the answer. They're drafting a new one.
They're drafting a new one. Yep. They're
Okay.
Zach Wilson,
the
Mac
Bears
Jones.
lost 3 in a row, not 2.
Yeah. So they need a new quarterback, something young. Keep Foles around for veteran presence, like kind of how Tua and Fitzpatrick, that whole thing was. They have the defense. It just they don't have offense. Montgomery, he's having a better year than he did last year. Tariq Cohen, he's out, but he's a good back too. Robinson's a good receiver. And then they drafted Cole Kmet, who was going to be a top tight end. He hasn't done that good this year, but they have Jimmy Graham, so they just got to compete. It's boring to watch them get a new quarterback, be a new firepower team.
Yeah, Bears, they didn't score any points to the fourth quarter. That's when the game got close. They kind of they narrowly took it down to the wire, but it wasn't really close the entire game. It looked like the Titans had it in control. And just another good performance by the Titans, a good bounce back win after a rough loss to the Bengals last week. So good to see them, like I said, bounce back, and they'll look to be contenders. In the AFC South, they've got a big matchup with the Colts coming up on Thursday Night Football to start Week 10. So that's going to be a game we're going to keep our eyes out on. And speaking of the Colts, we're going to move right into that game. They played the Ravens. They lost that game 24-10. The Colts never really got their offense running. They scored a touchdown in the first quarter, and then they got a field goal in the second, but that was all they got. Phillip Rivers, just not a good game. 25 of 43, 227 yards, and an interception. it just wasn't a good performance at all from anyone on Indianapolis, really. Their defense had a fumble recovery, but that was about it. Lamar Jackson, it's not like the Ravens didn't shine at all either. They did have it was either
Fumble six.
fumble six. They had a fumble return for a touchdown, which I think that was the only points they had in the first half.
Yep.
And then Lamar Jackson ran one in for a touchdown. The Ravens offense didn't really play up to expectations in this game either. But I'll hand this one off to you guys, and what do you guys got on it?
Yeah, I thought that the Ravens offense would have played a little bit better. I mean, I know the Colts have a good defense, but I will give to Lamar. He was able to control the tempo of the second half. With his rushing, his passing wasn't too great. 19 for 23, 170. Didn't throw a touchdown, but 19 for 23. Very good completion percentage there. And just like I said, able to control the tempo. And then the Ravens defense did not allow really anything from the Colts offense. So a good win against a team who, probably are going to make the playoffs, and the Colts. It's going to be a tough race between them and the Titans for the AFC South, but like you said, on Thursday, it's going to be a really big game. And I still think they'll probably I think they'll both probably make the playoffs with the 7 teams in the wild card, but a good win for the Ravens. They definitely needed one.
Yeah, I was watching this game at the beginning of the game, just how it started. I honestly thought the Colts were gonna win it, and I'm not high on the Colts. Just they looked good in the first. They scored a touchdown, Jonathan Taylor. Then they got that fumble, recovery that they ran it, for like yardage. But then once that Jonathan Taylor, his biggest thing in college was ball security, and it happened again. Once he fumbled that and they scored a touchdown, and it was over. You saw the Colts. It was just a huge momentum changer, and the Colts weren't the same after that. So just, good win by the Ravens. I think that the Ravens aren't as good, or they're not as good, but aren't the Ravens from last season. They're just not as like on fire as they were. Teams aren't scared of them anymore. I just had like heartburn. I don't know. I'm 18 too, but just it was a good one by the Ravens. My bad for the heartburn.
No worries, Anthony. Yeah, the Ravens, they just need to keep winning games and hope that the Steelers drop a few games and maybe they could potentially win the North. They do have another matchup later on in the season, which will make for another interesting game. But about the Colts, I just feel like I said, their offense never really got underway. Jonathan Taylor did fumble that ball, like Anthony said, and that kind of was a turning point in the game. It's like some games they do really good on offense, and some games their offense just doesn't bother showing up at all.
41 last week.
Yeah, so it's like a coin toss every week with them. It's like, are we going to do good on offense or are we not? So they need to figure that out. And for the Ravens, I think they need to get their run game just a little bit more involved. I'm not entirely sure if Mark Ingram played. It's been a while since he played though. So when they get him back, get him involved. I would say get Lamar running the ball a little bit more. That was the main reason I would say he probably won the MVP last year. So him running the ball is very important to them. And just the overall success of the offense, because the defense has been playing great. So they just need their offense to really step it up to win, games like this. Like their offense didn't really step up that much when they played Pittsburgh, but their defense was doing pretty well. If their offense just stepped up a little bit more, they would have won that game. So both offenses, I would say, need to step up just a little bit for both. For the Colts, I would say it's a lot. For the Ravens, I would say just a little bit. But both defenses continue to play pretty well. Even though they let up 24, Colts defense did play pretty well today, I would say. Yeah, two teams that are going to be vying for a playoff spot. They could potentially both be wildcard teams, depending on how the South goes. And like we said, that Thursday night game that's coming up soon. we'll have to see how that goes and where these teams end up. They could maybe match up in the playoffs down the line. Who knows? We'll move on. This was probably the game of the weekend. A very exciting game between the Chiefs and the Panthers. Back and forth game between these two. The Panthers, they finally got Christian McCaffrey back, and he had one hell of a game. 18 carries for 69 yards and a rushing touchdown. He also had 10 catches for 82 yards and a receiving touchdown. Teddy Bridgewater, he played a very well game. He dueled with Patrick Mahomes, who had he went 30 for 45, 372 yards and 4 touchdowns. So a very good game on both sides of the ball for the Panthers and the Chiefs. Guys, you take it away.
Yeah, very, very exciting game. You could see just the instant impact that Christian McCaffrey had. He kept them in the game with the Chiefs, who I still think, for me, I think the Chiefs are the best team in the league. And he was a monster, man. It didn't look like he missed a beat since coming back from week 2 was when he got injured. Like Mike Davis performed pretty well. The past few weeks, it wasn't as good as it was before, but Christian McCaffrey is a different type of player, one of the top backs in the league, and Teddy Bridgewater too. He had instant connection with him. He targeted him 10 times and he caught all 10 targets. And Teddy Bridgewater played a really good game. But the difference maker was just Patrick Mahomes, and then Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, just the big three on the Kansas City offense. Travis Kelce had 10 receptions for 159 yards. Tyreek Hill, 9 receptions, 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. And just after this performance today, I think that Mahomes has probably pushed himself ahead of Wilson for me in the MVP conversation, because I think he's on 25 touchdowns and 1 interception. He's been outstanding this year. He is not turning the ball over at all. Wilson has had his turnover troubles a little bit in the past few weeks. So just it's a good win. The Chiefs are weird to me. I feel like they're better against better teams. I just don't know what it is. Maybe it's Andy Reid just keeping close games for some reason. But like, they can play a close game against the Panthers, lose to the Raiders, who are a good team, but I'm talking like they handled the Ravens easily. They handled the Bills easily. So it's a bit odd. Good game for the Panthers. The defense needs to play a little bit better, but it is against Patrick Mahomes. But a very exciting game, I will say.
It was an exciting game. I was mad the Panthers lost. I thought they had it. They had the lead for halftime. Just McCaffrey's instant, it's like he never left. Usually people, their first came back after an injury aren't as sharp, but he looked honestly like as good or even better as he was before. Teddy Bridgewater, I'm not going to talk that much about the Chiefs. They played good. Mahomes, Kelce, unbelievable. But just Teddy Bridgewater, the thing that stood out to me, and me and Don, we talked about this before we started the podcast. Just it was 4th and 10 or something.
It's 4th and 14.
14. 14. And this is a crucial drive. They really need to get points. And Bridgewater sees that all of his receivers are covered, and he runs out going for that 14, and he does like a dolphin dive flip and gets hit by 3 Chiefs players and gets that first down. That's awesome. That's great. I'm so happy I saw that. That shows heart. Heart's not given. It's something you're made out of, and that showed it for him. And I'm just happy I saw that. That was a great play, and he deserves, like, if I had to pick an MVP for this game, even though Mahomes had 4 touchdowns, I'm giving that to him. Just hats off for that, showing hustle, showing that he can be the leader of this team. His first year there, and the Panthers offense especially is a very underrated offense. Like Dom said, Robbie Anderson's underrated player, Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, McCaffrey. This is a young team that's just going to get better and just start competing. But just hats off to Teddy Bridgewater. That stuck out to me so much, and I'm really happy I saw that.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that Teddy Bridgewater might be one of the most underrated signings, honestly, of free agency. I know he wanted to stay in New Orleans. He enjoyed being the backup to Drew Brees, and he really shined last year when he stepped in for Drew Brees when he got hurt. So I was, I liked him a lot when he was the starting quarterback in Minnesota. I feel like, he kind of got the short end of the stick when he got hurt and he missed those years. And they found their answer in Case Keenum, and then they eventually got Kirk Cousins, so they didn't have a need for him anymore. So it's nice to see Teddy Bridgewater bouncing back and I would say he's having a pretty good season so far. He's probably not in the MVP conversation to anyone, but he's having a good season. And he continues. He had a great game today. Obviously, big connections with Christian McCaffrey. Robbie Anderson had another pretty good game. And as we said, the Chiefs, they continue to impress. Patrick Mahomes, another great game. Dan said it, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill both had very big games. Travis Kelce, 10 catches, 159 yards. Tyreek Hill, 9 catches, 113 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So those guys continue to impress. Edwards-Helaire had a nice, decent game. And both teams just played pretty well. Defense is, bit of a struggle, but it is what it is in the NFL. I feel like there's not a lot of defense played anymore. But, oh well. But interesting game. Chiefs 8-1. Of course, that'd be the second best team record-wise, only behind the Steelers. And, we'll get to it later, but depending on the way the Steelers played today, I might be putting the Chiefs number 1 in my power rankings, if I'm being honest.
Mhm.
So we'll move on. Or real quick, before we do move on, Le'Veon Bell, his stats today, he had 1 catch for -5 yards and 4 carries for 8 yards. What does he got to do to sort of get involved a little bit more in the Chiefs offense?
Well, the Chiefs in general didn't run the ball well. I think Hilaire had like 5 rushes for 14 yards. So just this game in general wasn't the best rushing wise. So maybe in certain different like game scripts where they're called to run the ball more, they'll run the ball more. But I still think that Hilaire's their guy. They drafted him in the first round. I think maybe in shorter yard situations, like we kind of discussed before, Bell will probably get the carries. But I think you should. He's extremely talented, but I think that you just gotta give Hilaire carries. So that's just I don't really know what's next for Bell like after this season. He could very well get a Super Bowl ring and maybe want to stay and get another one. But I don't know. I don't think this game is probably the best to judge how much involvement he gets in the run game.
Yeah, honestly, I thought it was a great signing at first for the Chiefs, but I just don't think they need him. Hilaire's, they wouldn't have got a well at the draft. They didn't know that Bell would have been cut and everything, but they drafted him first round. Hilaire, he's been doing good. Just I don't think Le'Veon Bell is the player he was. Even when he got to the Jets, that year off killed him. He used to be a top 2, 3 back in the league. Now I don't even think he has it anymore. I don't think he's the Le'Veon Bell we're ever going to see again. It's his fault. I hate when players are like, "Oh, I want my money" and stuff like that, and he held out. But it's his fault. I don't think he has it anymore. I think he could just be there just in case, like when Hilaire's tired or when Williams isn't playing. I think it's just now a waste, honestly. I'm not a fan anymore of Bell.
Well said, boys. We'll move on. Lions-Vikings game. The story of this game for the second week in a row, Dalvin Cook absolutely tears it apart again. 22 carries, 206 yards, and 2 touchdowns rushing the ball. I believe he had 2 catches for 50 yards receiving the ball. Just another overall tremendous game. Matthew Stafford did end up playing in this game. I think we were all pretty convinced that he wouldn't. He was on the COVID list I think he got put on maybe Wednesday, and they activated him just yesterday. He ended up playing. Weird story. He was isolated from the team the entire week. He didn't have one snap of practice. He didn't actually see any of the members on the Lions until Sunday morning. He was self-isolated in a completely different part of the team hotel. So he ended up playing. He actually left the game. I believe it was in the third quarter, concussion protocol. Chase Daniel did eventually end up coming into the game, but it just wasn't enough. As I said, Dalvin Cook absolutely put on another show. Kirk Cousins also had a pretty decent game, I would say. 13 to 20, 220 yards, 3 touchdowns. en route to a win for the Vikings. They'll move it to 3-5. What do you guys got on this one?
Yeah, good win for the Vikings. I was happy to see that Stafford was coming back. He's a great football player, and it's unfortunate that he got hurt. Hopefully, it's not for too long. Hopefully, it's a speedy recovery. But for the Vikings, I mean, we saw it last week against Packers. This is just kind of what they have to do. They have to run the ball a lot, and Dalvin Cook will play well because he's an extremely talented back. He was hurt for a little bit, but he's having a really good season. And then Kirk Cousins can just show up when he needs to. He's not doing much. He's probably just a bit of like a game manager at this point. 13 for 20, 220, and 3 touchdowns. So 3 touchdowns on 13 completions. It's really good. None of the receivers had an outstanding day. Herb Smith, he found for 2 touchdowns on 2 receptions. So I think, this Viking team is capable of winning games. I said it last, they I don't know if they will, but I feel like there may be a slight possibility, depending on how the rest of the season goes for the NFC, that they could make the playoffs, perhaps. They have a pretty favorable schedule. They do have a few tough games they play. I believe the Bears twice, and then the Buccaneers and the Saints. But they do also have the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Panthers. So, I'll have to see. But they are pretty reliant on Dalvin Cook having a good game. But at this point, I don't know if I'd bet against him.
All I have to say is Dalvin Cook is the best running back in the league. Right behind him is McCaffrey. If McCaffrey didn't get hurt, I might not be saying that, but unfortunately he did. For this year, Dalvin Cook is the best running back in the league. He's unstoppable. Great game by him. If you're a fantasy owner of him, you must be living the life. Just great game by Dalvin Cook. He's the best in the league. If you want to argue with me, just text me and I'll tell you why.
You can find his
I
Instagram
will.
in the link in the description below, where you can find all of our Instagrams, my Twitter, along with our website. So go check all those out. Dan, it sounds like you want to debate Anthony on this Dalvin Cook being the best running back. Why don't we go ahead and
I
do
guess for this season, I mean, you can't. Well, if Cook hadn't got injured, he didn't miss as much as McCaffrey did. But I don't know how you can look past Alvin Kamara. He's doing it every single game. He's already surpassed 1,000 all-purpose yards. I think he might have done that last week. He's just getting touchdowns galore. He is the main reason that the Saints, I think, are 6-2. Without Michael Thomas did come back and he played tonight, but he was really the only thing in their offense. So for me right now, he's my offensive player of the year because we know the MVP is going to go to a quarterback. So offensive player of the year is just the best skill position player at this point. And I think that, you can't look past Alvin Kamara. He's had a fantastic season.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, I do. He's doing good, but just Dalvin Cook, I don't think that Dalvin Cook impacts the Vikings more than Kamara impacts the Saints. And you saw that tonight. He didn't even do that good. He had a 1-yard, well, I know we're not at the game, but he had a 1-yard touchdown. Dalvin Cook, without Dalvin Cook, the Vikings are a mess. If Kamara didn't play, the Saints, yes, they won't be as good, but they will still be good. They will be decent. They won't be a terrible team. If Cook's not there, they're a terrible team, the Vikings. And Dalvin Kamara's not putting 4 touchdowns up, 2 touchdowns, yeah. But 4 touchdown games. And
Well, Kamara offers more in the receiving end. You can't deny that.
Okay, but Dalvin Cook is the best running back in the league.
Recency bias. 2 games, but okay, we can move on.
I guess I'll just throw one last bit on that game, because you guys pretty much said all there is to say. At Minnesota Vikings, if you want to pay someone a lot of money to hand the ball off to Dalvin Cook and occasionally have a good game throwing the ball, I'm right here. Give me a call. I'll happily praise Kirk Cousins any day of the week. Let's move on. I would say the bottom dwellers of the NFC East, but there aren't really any bottom dwellers of the NFC East. The Giants played the Washington football team. I don't have much to say on this game besides Kyle Allen did leave the game with a nasty ankle injury, I believe in the third quarter. Alex Smith, he found his way back into the game. He had it was an iffy game, 24-32, 325 yards and a touchdown. He did have a couple interceptions, though. Wayne Gallman running the ball for the Giants, 14 carries, 68 yards and a touchdown. Antonio Gibson had a touchdown for the Redskins rushing the ball. Receiving-wise, Terry McLaurin had a very nice game, 7 receptions, 115 yards and a touchdown. I believe you're talking about before the game. Evan Ingram had a touchdown before the podcast. Evan Ingram had a touchdown catch for the Giants. You guys got anything on this game that you want to mention?
Yeah, I was watching this one at work, so I caught most of this game, and I can't believe that the Giants almost choked the game when Washington had 5 turnovers. 5 turnovers. That Terry McLaurin touchdown was insane. Alex Smith threaded the needle, and then he did great to break a tackler too, and then ran it all the way to the house. The Giants offense didn't move particularly well. I know Washington has a formidable defense, not top tier, but definitely not towards the bottom. Wayne Gallman was probably the only outstanding player on the Giants offense. Daniel Jones didn't look too great, if I'm being honest. Evan Ingram caught a touchdown, but he had a drop or two. He is not a good tight end. The Giants should have beat the Eagles, but he dropped it again. He just never shows up for me. And yeah, the Giants, they do hold on to this one, but very, very narrowly escape an embarrassing loss.
Yeah, he just covered it there. Good to see Alex Smith back after everything he's been through. That's just the main thing I take out of it.
Yeah, I think it's all we have to say on this game, honestly. Another, I would say, kind of boring game between these two. Then when they played a couple weeks back, the other game was kind of boring as well. So we'll just move on. Now I can say it. The bottom dwellers of the AFC South, they played when the Texans took on the Jaguars. Jake Luton made his first career start. Pretty decent game, 26-38, 304 yards and a touchdown. I believe he had an interception as well. James Robinson, he continues to impress, 25 carries, 99 yards and a touchdown. DJ Chark had a great game, 7 receptions, 146 yards and a touchdown. I believe Will Fuller, he had about 100 yards receiving. Brandon Cooks, he had a good amount of yards on one play, which really boosted his numbers, gave him a touchdown. Guys, what do we got on this one?
Yeah, the Texans do just enough. I think Jacksonville, I mean, for having a guy making his first ever start, they at least deserve the overtime try. Lutton ran in I think it was a 13-yard touchdown to give him a chance to tie it it was like 5 seconds left, but they missed on the 2-point conversion. Texans win this one. I'm not too impressed. Like I know they've been playing better since they fired Bill O'Brien, but this Texans team needs a lot of help to be. I still think the Colts and the Titans are easily better than these two teams, but a win's a win, so the Texans will definitely take that.
Yeah, I know the Texans won the game, but the Jaguars honestly did to me. With Luton, his first pass ever and his first NFL start ever was his 65-yard bomb to Chark, a perfect throw. It was great to see. This Jaguars team just the first week they beat the Colts, and then the week after they competed with the Titans, they went off a walk-off field goal. But they're just having fun. They have their defense. I know losing Ngakoue, Calais Campbell, and everything, but they still, Josh Allen's very underrated. People forget about him, and then Chason, who they drafted this year, and the cornerback CJ Henderson, who they drafted this year also. They're a young team. Robinson's undrafted. free agent signees just stepping up. They have weapons now. Minshew might not be the guy. They can get a quarterback in the draft, but just it's fun to watch the Jaguars play. They know that they're overlooked and they surprise some teams, and they won the day in my book to me.
Well, in Anthony's book, they won. On the record, they did not win. They'll go to 1-7. Texans 2-6. Playoffs in the future for either of these teams, not likely. Unless the Texans somehow ran the table and some teams stumbled along the way. But a good game. Lutton making his first career start, pretty impressive. DJ Chark, as we said, had a good game. Jaguars, they put up a good fight, but as Dan said, couldn't get the 2-point conversion to take the game into overtime, give themselves a chance to win it. Texans ended up taking the game, as I said, to go to 2-6. No playoffs. I think the Jaguars will take the loss. Better draft pick. Just improve on this, learn from this, and hope for the best next year as the season continues to move on. And obviously the season will come to an end, probably week 17. So we'll see what happens for these two teams in the near future. Moving on, we had a nice AFC West showdown in Los Angeles. The Raiders, they played the Chargers. The story of this game was really the run game for the Raiders led them to victory. Devontae Booker, 6 carries, 68 yards and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs had 14 carries, 65 yards and a touchdown. Herbert continues to impress with the Chargers. 28-42, 326, and 2 touchdowns. Balaj for the Chargers, he had 15 carries, 69 yards and a touchdown. Keenan Allen also had a very nice game. 9 receptions, 103 yards and a touchdown. Herbert did leave the game at some point. He did end up coming back in. I believe it was a knee injury. He came out. Tyrod Taylor came in for, I think it was only a 2-point conversion. I'm not sure how much of the game he missed, but he did come out. He came back in, so I think he is okay. What do you guys got on this?
Just a good win for the Raiders, and it's looking like more of a possibility that they could definitely make it into a wild card spot in the AFC. Like this Raiders game was the offense, at least, was kind of like eerily similar to the Vikings in my opinion, because like Carr 13 for 23, 165 and 2 touchdowns. So he didn't really do much. And if you were to like combine all the stats from all the Raiders rushers, it'd be comparable to Dalvin Cook. So I think for the Raiders to be successful, they just need to run the ball with Josh Jacobs and then let Carr do his thing from time to time. The Chargers, tough divisional loss after a tough divisional loss last week. Herbert, he's still looking good, so they're a team for the future. But a good win for the Raiders, and their playoffs is definitely a possibility for them.
I agree. It's a good win. And I have to say, they're both teams for the future. I think the Raiders, as of now, if the season ended today, they are in the wild card, and they're a good team. They can compete. They're just going to get better. They might shock some teams, like they did beat the Chiefs, so maybe in the playoffs, play Chiefs again, they win. But just good win by the Raiders. Derek Carr, just he has to just do his thing time to time. He knows that he's not going to have to. They're going to rely on him. They're going to rely on the run game. That's John Gruden. Stick it to the defense, football. Just good win by the Raiders, and I'm just now they have the Chiefs. I'm pretty sure next week, and let's see if they can win the season.
Chiefs on a bye next week, so it's definitely not.
They play them like the week after. Just let's see if they can, win the season series.
Yeah, it'll be a big game for them. Definitely in their playoff hopes. But this game puts them in a very good spot. They sit at 5-3 now. They'll continue to improve on the season and definitely look to get into a wild card spot. It doesn't look like they'll win the division. They'll probably need the Chiefs to slip up a few more points throughout the season. Definitely need to win that game against them. But I like the Raiders. I like what I saw from them today. Chargers, they lose on a last-second play again. Last week, they lost to the Broncos on that last-second touchdown to KJ Hamler. And this week, they had 2 chances at the end zone to win the game. I believe it was Mike Williams at the first one. He couldn't. He had it. He dropped it right in the back of the corner of the end zone. And then their backup tight end dropped it when he had it in the end zone as well on a play that was originally called the touchdown. And after they reviewed it, it was very clear he dropped it. So the Chargers, they lose another very close one. They look like a good team, but they just can't get the results. But Justin Herbert continues to impress, which is a good sign for all the Chargers fans out there, the very small amount of you. So, good game, like I said, from the Raiders. They ran the ball very well. I believe Nelson Aguilar had a 40-yard touchdown. So, it's not like Derek Carr had a terrible game, but it was definitely the run game that helped the Raiders win this game. As I mentioned, Devontae Booker and Josh Jacobs both had very nice games. Both had touchdowns over 60 yards. So I think it's a very good shot that the Raiders end up making the playoffs. And I wouldn't be surprised if they stole a game or two in the playoffs. The team's pretty good, I would say, in my opinion. I think if their defense improves just a little bit, they'll be, I won't say right at the top of the AFC, but they'll definitely, they could win a game in the wild card, steal a game, especially depending on who they get matched up with and what wild card spot they end up getting. So we'll move on from that game. This was really weird. This game, the 8-0 or 7-0 Steelers, I should say, they went to Dallas. They played the Cowboys, very struggling Cowboys who started Garrett Gilbert this week. And the Cowboys brought the best out of the Steelers. Steelers had to score 15 points in the fourth quarter to win the game, 24-19. Ben Roethlisberger, 29-42, 306 yards, 3 touchdowns. Tony Pollard was the leading rusher for the entire game. 9 carries, 57 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster, he had a good game. 6 receptions, 93 yards, and a touchdown. Go ahead, guys. Take this one away.
I think the Steelers probably just came into this game like, we're 7-0. We just beat our toughest rivals in the Ravens, and the Cowboys are struggling. They just lost to the Eagles. So I just think they probably came in. They weren't expecting much of a game, and Dallas just kind of hung in with them and forced them to make a comeback. I still think very highly of the Steelers, even though it was a poor performance. It was a win, so that's what really matters for them. Hopefully this is a bit of like okay, we can't just come in and expect to steamroll teams. But, this doesn't really change my opinion about either team. Dallas is they're hopeless without Dak Prescott, and Pittsburgh should be fine. They just need to be a bit more aware going into games.
Yeah, very poor game by Pittsburgh. I honestly, when I was watching that game, I wanted them to lose just because, I don't know, I wanted them to lose. I liked Gilbert. His first time ever playing in the NFL. You're coming from the XFL, and he might not have the numbers to prove it or back it up, but I didn't think he performed bad at all. He looked like he knew what he was doing. He was confident. The drive that they had to go to try to score for the win, like the last drive after they stopped a fourth down attempt by the Steelers, he was on the sideline hitting everyone saying, "Let's go, we got this." And then he did march him down the field till like 25, 30, and then a tip pass, and then it was over the game. But just Steelers need to wake up. They can't take anything lightly. It don't matter who you're playing, just because when you take things lightly, it ruins momentum that you have, because you could see like just reactions of Big Ben, Juju, James Conner, and their faces. They knew that they really lost this game, and they can't be like that, especially if you want to go to the Super Bowl. If you want to keep that undefeated record, you can't play like that. But I was happy to see, good. The defense for Dallas wasn't even that bad either. Just good day by Dallas. Gilbert, I was impressed. Good job by you.
Yeah, he definitely did better than Ben DiNucci did against the Eagles, I would say. He didn't have the greatest games, but again, better than Ben DiNucci did. The Steelers definitely need to look at this game as a big wake-up call. This game kind of made me change my opinion on them. Before this game, I thought they were the surefire number 1 team in the AFC. I think the Chiefs probably took that spot this week with this poor performance from the Steelers. They could definitely prove me wrong. They could, things could change throughout the season. We still got a while to go. But I would flip-flop them. I would say the Chiefs are probably 1 now. Steelers probably 2, but it's very close. But the Steelers definitely need to use this game as a wake-up call. Their defense played great, but their offense needs to step up. Just a poor performance, I would say. They need to get the run game involved a little bit more. And Big Ben, he did leave the game for a little bit with I believe it was a knee injury, but he is fine. He did come back into the game, finished it. Juju had a good game, obviously. Big Ben had another good game, like he's been doing so far this season. And the Steelers remain perfect, which is, I guess, no matter how ugly a win's a win. They'll continue their undefeated ways, 8-0. Not entirely sure who's next on their schedule, but they're going to look to continue to keep rolling. They will play the Bengals next week on November the 15th. So could be another trap game for them. See how they do against the Bengals. But story of this, Steelers remain perfect, 8-0. They're the only unbeaten team left in the NFL, so we'll have to see how they continue with the rest of their season. Another tremendous game in the late window of games on Sunday. Dolphins played the Cardinals. It was a very good quarterback duel between Tua Tagovailoa and his second career start and Kyler Murray. Guys, I'll let you guys take this one to start with.
Yeah, you kind of hit it right away. Tua played a much better game than he did against the Rams. To be fair, the Rams do have Aaron Donald, and they do have a better defense overall than the Cardinals, I will say. But Tua, 20 for 28, 248, and 2 touchdowns. He threw a nice little dime to Mac Hollins, formerly of the Eagles, and Mac Hollins made a great catch to kind of give him the lead. They also did get a fumble 6 early in the game. Shaq Lawson, 36-yard fumble return. Arizona, Kyler Murray had a really good game, 21 for 26, 283, 3 touchdowns, and on the ground, 11 rushes, 106 yards, and a touchdown. This is his first career game. Over 100 yards, of course, in the NFL. Christian Kirk also had a really good game, 5 receptions, 123 yards, and a touchdown. And I think that, this is a really big win for the Dolphins, if I'm being honest. Like last week, it was impressive, but I feel like there was a bit of an asterisk next to it because the special teams played so well, and Jared Goff had a horrific game. But the Dolphins put up a lot of points. The defense still played really well with that fumble 6, like I just said. And also they were without Myles Gaskin, their top back for the majority of the year. He was on IR, so they're going to have to, change the running game up a little bit. Matt Breida out as well. But a very, very good win for the Dolphins, and it'll be interesting to see how if they can make the playoffs, because in terms of the wild card, I feel like the Ravens are a lock on. I don't see them missing the playoffs. And then, you have the Colts, you have the Raiders, you have the Browns, and you have the Dolphins. So I think the Browns are probably the lowest out of those teams. But it'll be an interesting race in the AFC.
Yeah, I'm happy for the Dolphins. Last podcast I said it was going to be a big weekend for the I gotta learn how to pronounce his last name. Tagovailoa family, and it was. Tua, last week he didn't do that good. This is his first game now. He's got confidence, and he did good today. He had that great scramble and run, and he took a hit for it, which was nice to see that his hip and everything's been through. It's working. He can take hits like that. Great throw to Mac Hollins. Preston Williams did go out. He did get hurt with an ankle injury, so it's something to watch. They didn't say anything further about it. The defense is still performing. Flores, the defensive coach, he knows that he's got to have them sharp for Tua to help Tua out. But just a good win by the Dolphins. Kyler Murray played unbelievable. Hopkins didn't play that good today. Only like 66 receptions, 60 yards, which is not bad, but for his standard, it's not good. Murray he just did awesome rushing, passing. He's just making himself one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think he's honestly better than Lamar. But he's just unbelievable game. Great win by the Dolphins. This was a football game you wanted to watch. I know the last kick by the Cardinals. Gonzalez was only a 49-yarder, and he was short, which kind of, I don't know what happened. Kind of confusing. 49-yarders are not that big, especially because he hit one longer. I'm pretty sure against the Seahawks to win. I don't know what happened there, but just great game of football. Great thing to watch.
Yeah, you guys said it all pretty much. I think the one thing I will take away from this game is Kyle Murray is really looking like a huge payoff for the Cardinals. I know they took a lot of heat, and I'm not going to lie, I was one of the guys that gave them a lot of heat when they traded Josh Rosen, and they ended up taking Kyler Murray, number 1 overall, and there was a big question if he was going to go play baseball or if he was going to stick with football. And, he probably made a really good choice sticking with football. He's looking very impressive for the Cardinals. He continues to improve very well. And for the Dolphins, this is a really good win for them. This puts them at 5-3. This puts them right in the hunt for that wild card spot. Especially, 7 teams are going to make it now. 3 wild card teams. They could very well get it, honestly. And the way that the AFC East is going, if the Bills slip up along the way, the Dolphins could very well, sneak up there and take that division as well. Who knows? But I think I'm not going to say they're a surefire lock for the playoffs, but I could definitely see the Dolphins making it in, depending on how the rest of the season goes. Dan mentioned the Browns. Maybe the Raiders slip up along the way. Who knows? The Dolphins could very well be playing football in January, or I'm not going to say late into January, early February, because who knows? But I could definitely see them making playoffs if they continue to play this way, and if Tua continues to play this way, and their defense got, as Dan said, got another touchdown today. If they continue to play somewhat decently and can help out the offense, they could maybe make a push. Dan's making a weird face over there, hoping I didn't say something he doesn't agree with. But
Feel bad for the Oakland Athletics wasting a 7th overall pick on Kyler Murray because he's not coming there.
they're doing pretty good in their own way right now. But we'll talk about baseball another day. But good win for Miami. This puts them at 5-3, and the Cardinals, I wouldn't say they really needed this game, but it would have been nice if they would have had it because they would have tied them for first place with the Seahawks. So we'll see where these teams go. Dolphins, as I said, impressive win, puts them to 5-3, puts both the teams to 5-3. So we'll move on. And Anthony, I want you to talk about this game first. Saints, they played the Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. Absolutely hammered the Buccaneers 38-3. Dan's gone. 2-man show now. Welcome to the Sports King.Pod with me and Anthony. And this is perfect. Anthony, I want you to take it away for this game. 38-3. Tom Brady. This is the biggest loss of his career. 35 points. Just a terrible game. I think he had 3 interceptions. So why don't you go ahead and take it away and see if we can get Dan back?
Well, I think we are going to get Dan back. I think I know what happened to his computer. I hear footsteps. But it was just a bad game. The Saints have that his number this year, or the Bucks number this year. Here's Dan walking in our room.
Hey, there's the third member of the Sports King.Pod, Daniel Price. Welcome back to the show, Dan.
He didn't come prepared, bringing a computer charger was number 1 ranked in high school. Exactly.
What a rookie move.
My computer was on 8%.
I'm speaking, so you can go back down.
We're talking about how the Buccaneers got hammered, Dan. Come on.
So, it was a poor game. It was cool to see Antonio Brown back. He didn't do tremendous. He didn't do bad. He had one really nice catch. He's been through a lot, and Brady changed his life tremendously. He actually lived at Brady's house for a little. But just the Saints looked very good. Michael Thomas was back. He didn't have Michael Thomas numbers, but Taysom Hill was awesome. I think he's the coolest dude in the NFL. He had a great passing, rushing, just even blocking sometimes. He's just a great tool that the Saints have that really the plays that set up the Saints for scoring was the plays that after Taysom Hill did an impact to it. The first touchdown of the game, it was just the Buccaneers defense. I think it was Ginn Jr. It was number 10 or Tre'Quan Smith. He was just wide open. No one was near him for like 15 yards. Wide open in the end zone. Just bad communication. It's just the Bucs are struggling on these primetime games. That's what their losses were to the Bears and the Saints again. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, sorry about my computer was on 8% and it died. I wasn't really sure about that.
Sorry. Continue, Anthony.
Yeah, but just poor game. They're just gonna pretty sure they play the Panthers next, I think. Just, we live and forget. We move on. We learn from our past. That's it. They'll be fine. I'm not changing any statement I said. I know that's what you are going to start saying to me, but I'm not changing any statement. I still believe they're the best team in football.
Well,
just
listen,
not this week.
You made it very well known that earlier in the podcast that there was video proof for you saying that Maryland was going to beat Penn State. And now all I'm saying is there's video proof for you saying the Buccaneers are the best team in football, and they just lost by 35 points at home on Sunday Night Football. That doesn't sound like something the best team in football would do, if you ask me.
Okay, don't matter. Teams lose. It's
Not by
it's
35
one loss.
points. I don't see the Chiefs losing by 35 points. I don't see the Seahawks losing by 35 points.
No, it don't matter. It don't matter. It's once it gets to what's it going to be, January, February for playoffs. It's everyone's the same. I still think they.
I hope you say that when the Eagles
like 8
steamroll them
games
in the
left.
divisional round.
The Eagles are even lucky. I saw they're doing the thing to where playoffs are going to. They thinking of changing playoffs where it's a record because how the Eagles are going to be the 4 seed. Say if whoever wins the NFC East is going to be the 4 seed. Most likely the Eagles. What it looks like.
All right, hold on. Let's talk about that in a minute. Let's continue with the Sunday night game. Dan, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. But I guess going into Sunday night game, my performer of the weekend, I just picked the Saints in general. A few players had a, outstanding game. Drew Brees had a pretty good game. Kamara, but just the Saints in general, they just, they went to Tampa Bay, playing for the division, and they didn't just win. They absolutely smoked them, and they would have won by more if Jared Cook could catch and or hold on to the ball. And the defense just, they made Tom Brady look like Ben DiNucci did against the Eagles last week. I mean, he has, I think, 6 interceptions this year, and 4 of them are against the Saints. Sean Payton just did a really good job getting Taysom Hill involved. He was fantastic too. Just Drew Brees has Tom Brady's number this year. And I guess regarding Anthony's statement on the best team in the NFL, I don't see it. I don't even think they're the best team in their own division. You can't say, oh, they're not, because they lost to them twice already. I just think that if the Buccaneers end up making the playoffs, which I think they probably will, like, depending on who they face, I don't know if Tom Brady and that Bucs offense is volatile enough to just, steamroll a team and the defense who have some very good players and play very well. I'm just not sure that they'll just, pocket receivers and stop the run. So just, yeah, like I said, my performer of the weekend has to go to the Saints, and they're atop the division now. And if the records are tied, they'll hold the tiebreaker because they won the season series.
Yeah, Saints absolutely balled out. There's no way around it. Tampa Bay ran the ball 5 total times. Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette had 4 of those rushes for 8 total yards. That's not very good, as you could probably assume. I mean, some of the wide receivers had good games, but Tom Brady threw the ball 38 times. Like I said, 3 interceptions. Had a QBR of 3.8, so that's not very good. Mike Evans, 4 catches, 64 yards. Chris Godwin, 3 catches, 41 yards. Antonio Brown had 3 catches and 31 yards in his team debut. I guess that's a pretty nice debut for him, but like I said, the team just didn't do good at all.
I feel like Gronk dropped 5 passes. Like, he was terrible.
Gronk
He
was playing
couldn't
with a
block
bad
either.
shoulder.
Okay.
He had 6 targets, 1 catch, 2 yards. But yeah, the story of the game is just how amazing the Saints offense played. Drew Brees had his best game of the season by far, 26 of 32, 222 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Taysom Hill, he was 2 for 2, 48 yards throwing the ball. Jameis Winston got a pass off. He was 1 for 1, 12 yards. Good
Oh,
for him.
nice. I didn't know he got an attempt.
Yeah. Taysom
And
Hill,
then he lost,
he did everything this game. Taysom Hill, 7 carries for 54 yards. Alvin Kamara, 9 carries, 40 yards. Latavius Murray had 10 carries. 39 yards. Kamara also had a rushing touchdown. Michael Thomas, his first game back in a while, 5 catches, 51 yards. Deontay Harris had a catch for 40 yards. Emmanuel Sanders had a touchdown catch for 38. Taysom Hill, he also had a catch for 21 yards. Traquan Smith had a touchdown. And Josh Hill also had a touchdown. So it was overall just a great performance offensively and defensively from the Saints. Everyone was having a good game. No one really played bad, honestly. Defense played tremendous. I really don't have much to say about this game. Malcolm Jenkins got an interception, so it's good to see my guy still balling out in New Orleans. Yeah, I mean, you guys got anything else on this game?
Oh, I guess the question for you, Don, because I know Annie's answer. So after today's result, regarding the NFC, who do you think is the top contender? Do you think it's the Saints, Seahawks, Packers? Because it's close for me.
The Saints definitely bounced back after a rough performance against the Bears last week, but I don't really know because, like we were just saying, once you get to the playoffs, I mean, records really don't matter.
Mhm.
So I could say the Seahawks. They've looked very impressive throughout the season. Besides today against Buffalo, and even today, still pretty good. Again, I'd like to say the Saints, but they had I would say, a shaky performance against the Bears last week. Green Bay, they're shaky, like we were talking about earlier. You know, a weird loss against the Buccaneers and a terrible loss against the Vikings. So there's not a clear candidate. Like you could say, there's probably a clear candidate for the AFC. I think if I had to put money on a team in the NFC to win the Super Bowl right now, I would probably feel most comfortable putting it on the Seahawks, just because their offense is probably good enough to carry them to a Super Bowl. Honestly, I think second I would say the Packers, and the third I would say the Saints. I think if I were to put those 3 teams in a pecking order, that's how I would do it. But it's very interchangeable between 2 and 3, I would say, honestly. The Saints could easily be 2, and the Packers could also easily be 3, in my opinion. But I think the Seahawks are probably the surefire number 1 overall team in the NFC for me, at least. Again, that could easily change throughout the season. There's still a while to go. We officially hit the halfway point in the season today, in the year. So there's a lot more football left to play. Playoff spots up for grabs. So we'll have to see how the teams do and where they all go from here.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, but I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, good question. There is one last game in NFL Week 9, and it is the Monday night game between the New York Jets, the winless New York Jets, 0-8, going against the struggling Patriots at 2-5. So we talked about it briefly on the midweek podcast. Let's go just a teeny bit more in depth. What do we got for Monday night, guys?
I think this should be an exceptionally boring game, but I think, Dom, like we said the last time, just looking at the Jets schedule, if you truly think that they're not going to go 0-16, this is the game they win. You know, like I truly don't see another game in their schedule that they're winning. So it's this one. I mean, this Jets team is bad. This Patriots team is bad too. Division games always close. Prime time. I think the Jets get this one. I don't see them going 0-16. I like 1-15 or 2-14, and this to me is where they get their win.
I think it's gonna be a close game. I love Sam Darnold. I think he's gonna perform very well. Patriots are gonna win by probably no more than 7 field goal, like between 3 to 7. But I have the Patriots winning this game.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Dan. I think this is probably going to be a really boring game. But there's nothing else better on Monday nights, so we'll watch football. Final score of this game probably be like 13-7, maybe 13-10 possibly. It looks like the Jets are going to be without Sam Darnold, so Joe Flacco's probably going to get the start. He's doubtful right now. It said he didn't practice on Saturday. He's listed as doubtful, so I imagine pretty self-explanatory. I doubt he's going to play. But yeah, I do like the Jets in this game. I think they're going to win. I don't know why. I just think they do. I think they are. The Patriots are struggling a lot. Their offense isn't doing good. It's been a while since Cam Newton had a touchdown pass. So I think for that reason alone, Jets, Jets. Why not? Maybe Frank Gore pops off, has a good game. That'd be nice to see. But I don't really care who wins this game. Patriots could win it. Jets could win it. It's not really going to affect me. I think it just make it all the better if the Jets did win the game. And I think that's all I have to say on that, if I'm being honest. Anything else from you guys on that game? All right, so Anthony touched upon it earlier, and I guess we'll expand upon it now. NFL is looking at expanding to an 8-team playoff. They've already expanded to a 17 playoff for this season. And as he mentioned, it would be determined by record. So, the Eagles could very well end up winning the division at, say, 6-9-1. They would end up getting a home playoff game. That would not be the case in this 18 playoff. The number one seed also wouldn't get a bye. So if the number one seed ends up being the Seahawks and they end up playing the Eagles, they will play. There will be no bye week for the Seahawks. And the Eagles would not get a home game either, even though they won a division. Be very different, similar to how the NBA does it with their 16-team playoff. Doesn't really matter if you win your division or not. You're not guaranteed a top spot, and you're definitely not guaranteed any home games. So I guess I'll just get your guys' opinion on this. How do you feel about a potential 18 playoff in the NFL?
I guess one question, say if it were to be implemented this year, say the Eagles win their division, do they still make to the playoffs, but they won't get a home playoff game, or could they miss it entirely?
Correct. They'll still make the playoffs.
So division winner still makes playoffs.
I believe so. Yes.
It's division. Okay. If you win your division, you make the playoffs. It just once the wild card set, it will reseed.
Okay. All right. Okay. So in that aspect, I don't really mind it, because even though you can make the playoffs with a bad record, I still feel like the division winner should make the playoffs. So if it's like that, I'm totally okay with it. But the thing I kind of don't like, I like that the 1 seed and the 2 seed have a bye. I feel like it's a reward for being the best 2 teams in that conference. And I just don't know. I mean, besides, obviously you're going to want to play for the 1 seed, so you play who perceivably is the weakest team that makes the playoffs. But I feel like there's going to be a little, I mean, obviously everyone wants to win, but there's going to be a little bit less motive to be the 1 or 2 seed in the conference, because you're not going to get that bye. I think it's a worthy reward. So I would like that another team gets in, because in the playoffs, the more the merrier. But I do like that the 1 and 2 seed get the bye.
I like the idea. I don't like that another team gets in, just because I think it's it's extra football that you're adding, which is not bad at all. Just it's more that it's going to be on the players, more of an impact on their bodies and everything, especially because it's not an easy sport. You get beat up. So I think they should keep it the 7 teams. I like that they added 1 for this year, and keep at least the number 1 seed get the bye. Then it will be 2, 7, 3, 6, 4, 5. But the thing I really liked about is the seeding part, saying that even though the division winners have to be in. I 100% agree with that. They have to be in. Just say if the Eagles win the division, not 6-9-1, but a little worse than that, or say any other team if it's a different year, I don't think that they deserve to be a higher seed than a team has a better record better record by them by a lot. If a team's below 500 and then there's a team above 650, I think they should have a better seeding, just because. But I don't think it should be 8 teams. I think they should keep it 7. Give the number 1 team a bye as a reward, because that's what buys are, rewards for being playing good during the regular season. So I like the idea. I just think they should take one team out and keep the bye.
I like the idea too, but I feel like it won't pass. It took a lot for the 7-team, I should say the 14-team playoff to pass. So I don't know if they're gonna look at a 16 and be like, okay, yeah, definitely. Um, I agree with Dan. I like that the first seed should get a bye. Football's a grueling sport, and having a bye week just means all that more to the players. Honestly, it's rewarding for being the best team in football, the best team in your conference. So I would stick for this season. I would stick with 17 playoff. I'm not totally opposed to the idea of a 16-team playoff. I do like the idea of it being record based, it being reseeded. So the Eagles do finish 6-9-1, and for the record, I think if they finished worse than 6-9-1, then they wouldn't win the division. But I like the idea, but I just don't think it's quite ready to be used for this year. Because I think it may be a little too late into the season to say this is what we're going to do now. And B, I just think you've already switched it. You've already switched the playoff format for this year. I don't think there's really a point to switching it again. So I would, if you're going to do it, hold off until at least next year and try and do it then. I think for now, the 14-team format is very good. I enjoyed the 12-team format. I thought that was a good format. The 1 and 2 seeds by. So I wouldn't be upset if they went back to that either. I like this 14-team format though, and I'd be open to a 16-team format in the future. I just think for this year, might be a little weird to put it in now. If that were the case, the 8 seed for the NFC would be the Bears, and the 8 seed for the AFC would be the Browns. So those teams would be squeaking in. Because right now the 7 seed for the AFC is the Dolphins, the 7 seed for the NFC is the Rams. So opening it up again, as Dan said, the more the merrier for the playoffs. Because once we get to the playoffs, anything could truly happen. The Eagles could end up being the 8 seed at 6-9-1 and end up playing the Saints or the Seahawks. And they could end up upsetting them for all we know. And the same thing could happen in the AFC. Honestly, say the Browns get the 8 seed, they could end up beating Pittsburgh. Maybe, who knows? But I said, I'd be open to the idea. I don't think it happens this year though. I think they hold off for another year or two. I'd stick with the 14-team format for now. Anything else on NFL, guys? All right, I guess it's gonna wrap us up then for episode 9 of the Sports King Pod. We thank you for tuning in. We're gonna look at the Sports King board one last time before we sign off. Here are all your scores from NFL Week 9. We went over them all. Broke them down. 4 teams on a bye week this week: the Browns, the Bengals, the Rams, and the Eagles, all on a bye. They'll be back in action next week. And we continue to look at the board. Monday Night Football between the Jets and the Patriots. We went over international friendly matches that'll take place this week with the Netherlands and playing Spain on the 11th and the United States playing Wales on the 12th. Some key soccer scores from the weekend. Man City, Liverpool, Bayern, Dortmund, Juve, Lazio, United, Everton, and Leicester Wolves. And as always, follow us on our socials on Twitter at sports__kingdom, on Instagram at sportsking.dom, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is what you're watching it on right now. Hit the subscribe button. Enjoy all the content that we've got coming out and all the future content we've got coming out soon. Check out our website. We've got great articles always coming out. Guys, any last messages before we sign off?
I guess I just want to say really quickly. I mean, I know he wasn't a sports figure, but just Alex Trebek passed away earlier today. He's meant a lot to me and a lot of people. So just rest in paradise, Alex Trebek.
Yeah, he announced the Ottawa Senators' 3rd overall pick, Tim Stutzo, this past draft. So that was really cool to see. He's had a big connection with most of the sports. He was a big sports guy. So rest in peace, Alex Trebek. Weeknights at 6 o'clock or whenever Jeopardy came on will just not be the same without him. 7. Apologies. Weeknights at 7 o'clock will just not be the same without Alex Trebek. He was a big part, of my childhood too, growing up watching that show a lot of the times. So rest in peace, Alex Trebek. Thoughts and prayers with his family. Anything else, guys, before we sign off? All right, everyone. Make sure you all stay safe. Wear your mask, social distance. Don't let COVID spike again. I don't want to be locked down again. I imagine these guys up here don't want to be locked down again. So be smart. Wear your masks. Don't be like Notre Dame fans. Don't storm the field when there's a pandemic going on.
That's fun.
And I guess that's going to do it for us tonight. I've been your host, Dom, as always, joined again by the Price brothers up top, Daniel and Anthony. My pain and suffering from Penn State will never end. And I guess that's all we got. So we will catch you guys in episode 10 when we hit double digits of the Sports King.Pod. But until then, we're going to sign off for tonight. So we'll catch you all in the next one. Adios, fellas.
See you.